Good morning. I'd like to call this work session of the Southampton Town to order this 7th day of June, 2018. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Please be seated. Actually, we have a special meeting scheduled too, so do I have to amend calling it to order? The special meeting, we're going to have to read that too. Yeah, so why don't we do that? Why don't we go and read the special meeting notice and then call the roll after that?
Members of the Town Board, special Town Board meeting Thursday, June 7, 2018, 10 a.m. Please be advised that pursuant to Section 62 of Town Law, a special Town Board meeting will be held in the Town Board meeting room, Southampton Town Hall, 116 Hampton Road, Southampton, New York, on Thursday, June 7, 2018, at 10 a.m. For the purpose of considering the following: Home Rule Request Resolution in support of Assembly Bill A 10681 and Senate Bill S 8658 as it relates to the transfer of the Shinnecock Dock, Hampton Bays. Home Rule Request Resolution in support of Assembly Bill A 10677 and Senate Bill S 8659 as it relates to the taxing authority of the trustees of the freeholders and commonalty of the town of Southampton. Jay Schneiderman, Supervisor, Town of Southampton, June 6, 2018.
Okay.
Supervisor Schneiderman.
Please, present.
Councilwoman Lofstad.
Here.
Councilwoman Scalera.
Here.
Councilman Bouvier.
Here.
Councilman Scavone.
Here.
Okay, thank you. As this is a special meeting, although I don't always do this at the work sessions, I do like to begin our formal meetings with moments of silence. So if I could ask everybody to stand. Typically in these moments of silences, I ask you to put in your thoughts and prayers, all the men and women serving in our armed forces, and that continues. But today I also would like to add the memory of two people who I knew well, Ben and Bonnie Krupinski of East Hampton, who died in that tragic plane crash over the weekend, as well as their grandson, 22-year-old William Mayroff, and the pilot, John Dollard of Hampton Bays, all killed in that plane crash. It was extremely tragic and a major loss for the East End community. These were extremely philanthropic people, large employers as well, and their loss will be, it's a hole that cannot be filled. It's tragic, and I know there's a wake that's this evening and a funeral service tomorrow, and to me it's a personal loss, and I can't say how deeply my condolences go to the family of these individuals. It's a sad moment for the East End, so let's join together in silence. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to do the special meeting first. Public portion. Is there anyone? I don't have any cards. Anybody wants to be heard in the public portion section of it? I'll make a motion to close public portion. Second. Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, so let's move on then to Resolution 578. We also have some add-ons too. There's somewhere about 3 add-ons. Oh, that's to the draft agenda. No walk-ons? Okay, perfect. All right. That's good. All right, so 578 is one of, I guess we have only 2 resolutions. So 578 is a Home Rule Request Resolution in support of Assembly Bill A 10681 and Senate Bill S8658 as it relates to the transfer of the Shinnecock Dock in Hampton Bays.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. Just on the motion, so the county owns the Shinnecock Dock area and the property alongside. Kathleen will take it. I'll do a 2-second introduction. We have talked about transferring this property to us. We've been paying the capital costs for years on it and operating the facility. And it just seemed to make a good sense for us to also control the facility. I think it's too important to the town, to the commercial fishing industry. And the county has been very cooperative. Of course, to do that transfer, even though nothing is changing there other than ownership, it does require the state to, they look at that title change as an alienation issue, right, Kathleen?
Yes.
And so they have to approve that, and then the legislature's already agreed at the county to transfer. This home rule is necessary for it to go through the state, and then we will also have a separate resolution accepting it. So Kathleen, I may have covered everything, but.
You did. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good morning, members of the town board. Just as a point of procedure, we were contacted late yesterday by the Assemblyman's office, and there was a revision to this bill. It's somewhat innocuous. They removed a phrase within the state legislation that said colloquially referred to as the Shinnecock Dock. So you will have to make, if you are so inclined, a motion to amend on the floor to just add an A next to the 3 references throughout that resolution to reflect the amended bills. So first it would be in your title, then in your 6th whereas clause, and then in your 1st resolved clause. Each bill will have to have an A after it.
So A1.
In the Assembly and the Senate?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor.
So-
A10681A and S8658A.
All right, so let me withdraw the motion to approve. I'll make a motion then to amend to add the letter A to the Senate and Assembly bill numbers at the end, wherever they appear in the resolution. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. All right, so now I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
Same second?
Same second, Councilman Lofstad. Any discussion? Yeah, Councilman
I do.
Scavone?
I've been down there, I've taken a look at the docks, and our long-term plan is to improve the infrastructure and the functionality of the docks. Is that correct? I think it's a good plan. It certainly needs repair, and I know the intermunicipal aspect of the docks down there made it problematic to upgrade the electric and the water systems. But that's really where what we're looking to do over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and
Is that
let
right?
me, yes, exactly. We're not looking to do anything new or different there. We're basically looking to do what we have been doing. Originally, the capital costs were to be shared, county and town. County is, as you're well aware, has been struggling with its financial situation and puts it in a, it's reluctant.
Right.
And we have to go through a legislature with 18 people, to get the bonding needed for this facility. So we have been basically paying 100% of the capital costs, yet we're not owners at all of this property. We're just managers of it. So this is very similar to the Log Wharf, which I know you're very familiar with in the Sag Harbor area, where though it wasn't considered a park, it was considered a county roadway. The county kept delaying the capital projects that would have repaired the bulkheads for that Long Wharf. And the mayor at the time, Mayor Gilbride, felt it was just too iconic to allow it to fall into disrepair. And the village stepped up and said they were willing to take it on. It turns out that a lot of these big infrastructure, capital infrastructure, they ended up sort of in the county's hands years ago when the county was run by the Board of Supervisors.
Right.
I know you're familiar with that. And it sort of made sense. The county was the bigger entity. Things like dredging and, the Long Wharf and the docks and some bridges, it just made much better sense to have the county with a larger entity take care of those types of structures. Today, it's kind of shifted. The town is in a good place to maintain the Shinnecock Dock. And, I think the time is right to make this transfer. So I hope that provides some additional information. Good. Any other discussion? Okay, as I'll make, we had a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Approved. Let me also thank on that not only the county executive and the county legislature, but Assemblyman Thiel and Senator Laval for moving this forward. I hope that they succeed up in Albany. I'm hopeful that they will. All right, so that was approved. Let's move on to 579 is a home rule request resolution in support of Assembly Bill A10677 and Senate Bill 8659 as it relates to the taxing authority of the trustees of the freeholders and commonality of the town of Southampton. Let me first get a second for discussion, seconded by Councilwoman Lobstack. And Kathleen, I'm sure I'm going to need you this time as well, so come on up. I'll try to do a brief synopsis of this. So the trustees were here before we were. So they predate the town board. They are a separate form of government, I think recognized as a municipal entity by the state at this point, and but of course, in many ways function more like a town department. We do the budget for the trustees, their employees are our employees. Whenever they need things, they have to come here and get those expenditures approved. Their independence as a separate government is sometimes questioned because of that arrangement. And there's been a long move to try to let the trustees function as they were created, as an independent body, to kind of separate them a little bit from the day-to-day functions of town hall, which the interests don't always align, as we've seen on some occasions. So to prevent a situation where, let's say, a town board would completely defund the trustees in the budget and make them so that they couldn't possibly operate, this idea came up of separate taxable abilities. And Assemblyman Thiel has put together a bill that would allow the trustees to function independently. And there has been some changes as recently as today, I believe. So the new bill does subject this entirely to a mandatory referendum so that the public would have the ability to decide whether this is what they want. And I feel much better about it because of that provision. So, but Kathleen, again, I probably have said too much, but
Not at all.
go ahead if you want to.
That's accurate, Mr. Supervisor. We were also contacted by Assemblyman Field's office to again let us know that there was a revision, an amendment to the proposed legislation, which does, as the supervisor indicated, subject this provision to a local law subject to mandatory referendum at the next general election. So I have some language for the town clerk for the board to amend. If you're so inclined, I can read that to you right now. I would propose that we insert it in the very last resolve clause. So in front of you, it should be on the bottom of page 1.
We're not adding the letter A, or is it something different?
We'll be adding the letter A, and then I'd like to read to you the language that I propose, which is, whereas the town board is supportive of said legislation, which requires that the town board adopt a local law subject to mandatory referendum pursuant to section 23 of the municipal home rule law in order for the provisions to take effect.
Okay, I only got the town board is supportive.
That's okay, I have it written, and I'm going to provide it to the clerk.
Okay, would you just read it one more time?
Sure. The town board is supportive of said legislation, which requires that the town board adopt a local law subject to mandatory referendum pursuant to section 23 of the municipal home rule law in order for the provisions to
After
take,
pursuant to what?
pursuant to section 23 of the municipal home rule law in order for the provisions to take effect. And so whether or not this makes this year's ballot will be dependent upon the timing of this bill, whether it gets approved, signed by the governor, and then you, of course, will have to have a public hearing for your local law, and then your local law will presumably, if you're so inclined, be adopted. That must happen at least 60 days prior to the general election.
So it's not 100% clear that this will be on the ballot for November.
Correct.
There's
It's
a number
possible.
of things that will have to meet the statutory timeframes, as well as the governor has to sign it.
Correct.
So, and then it would come If that happens, then it comes back, we'll have to have a public hearing on a local law
Correct.
that will subject this to mandatory referendum, so there'll be
Exactly.
more discussion.
Yes.
I do like the fact that the public will have an opportunity to formally weigh in on this. It does potentially affect them.
Absolutely.
So, and this idea that the trustees will have separate taxing authority, in my view, I've always looked at this as, the public is already being taxed to fund the trustees. It just appears in the town tax line. Now you would be able to see exactly what the trustees are receiving, and they would be fully accountable for how they spend that money, and what their budget is, and if it had what the tax impacts are for that budget. So to me, it's more transparency, but I certainly will let the public weigh in on what they want to do here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I just had a question. I'm assuming the law is still in committee, so are there expected further revisions, and what happens to our local law in that regard?
Well, it is in committee, it's in the local government committee, which is why you're being asked for a home rule request. Once we get, assuming arguendo you adopt this today, we send the home rule back up to the legislature. Presumably then it moves out of local government committee. Presumably if it gets adopted by both the House and the Senate, then it goes to the governor for his signature. Once it's on the governor's desk, I believe he has 10 days to sign it, but it's hard to predict when it gets to his desk. So if at such time it gets to his desk and he signs it, then the local law that we adopt would no longer be subject to change. And then that local law would be subject to mandatory referendum. Does that make sense?
Again, I'd also like to once again thank our Assemblyman Fred Thiel and our Senator Ken LaValle for progressing this. We do have several members of the Southampton Town Trustees, the freeholders in commonality. Do either of you, Scott Horowitz, who's the Secretary, Treasurer, or Secretary and Treasurer? And Treasurer. And Bruce Stoddard is also here, so, Stoddard. Did I say wrong? Stafford.
You okay if I say a few words?
Stafford, yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to thank the supervisor and the town board for getting involved with this. I think it's an excellent discussion. I also would like to applaud Assemblyman Thiel for recognizing the need for the public participation in this. I think this is historical legislation, imperative for the framework of this community, for the generations, protection of the generations. The Board of Trustees is one of the most important boards, in my view, that there is in this town for preserving public access to waterways and preserving all of our natural resources. The county of Suffolk is highly strained financially. The trustees are even strained greater than that, but yet we're defending some of the most important assets that we all enjoy. I think that it's an excellent discussion for the public to engage in and the trustees and the town board to engage in, because we won't be successful without a comprehensive intermunicipal agreement between the two and an understanding and respect for each one of our jurisdictions that we have. In the town, most of the ocean front is private property that we hold an easement over, predating back to 1686. It's important for us to be able to defend that in the interest of the public and have proper counsel for that. And owning the bay bottoms and many of the roads and infrastructure that's attached, that all has to be maintained. It takes a lot of work, and it takes funding as well. We have our enterprise revenue, but it's clearly not enough. I think that just the fact that we are having this conversation and we're going to educate the public on the importance, clear up some of the misunderstandings and miscommunications, and build the framework of this town so that it takes care of the resources, the environment, the ability for our children and grandchildren to access, I think is a good discussion. So I want to applaud you for welcoming this, and I look forward to doing whatever is necessary to be successful. That includes going to Albany if necessary. And I'm available to each and every one of you at any point in time for any conversation or ideas or brainstorming so that we can be successful. That's what this community needs.
Well, thank you, Scott. And, we have your seal above the door over here of the trustees, but more importantly, on that wall, you have the Dungan patent. which is the document that first, who was it, King James? Or
King James II.
King James II, who gave this colonial patent to the shareholders, the freeholders and commonality, to manage underwater lands and beaches and protect public access. And it is a big responsibility, there's no doubt. But I do think there's going to be a lot of public education so people understand what actually happened back 300 plus years ago when you guys were created, and how those traditions have carried to today, and what it would mean if you weren't here, and if there weren't stewards of those bottomlands and easements. So
Correct. It is a great discussion. It really is, and it's great for people to understand. We all read about the conflicts and the lawsuits and the problems, but you really got to get back to the framework and the importance and the understanding of how we're situated, what our structure is, how we need to respect each other's jurisdictions and work together to preserve what's near and dear. It's my third term serving as a trustee, and in that time we passed the first publicly adopted budget in 375 plus years. And we work with the town's comptroller so that we can control the finances and we can have the same degree of transparency and accountability that the town board has today. The trustees have resolutions the same that the town board has today. So we have come a long way in my tenure here. But really, to firm this up for the generations and move forward, we have to continue to strengthen our relationship through recognizing and respecting the authority of the two boards, why we exist, why we need each other, but why at times we need to let each one of us do our jobs, okay? And we need to educate the public. We need to get this done through the state. And if we work together, I think we are going to be part of something that is going to set the tone of history, that's going to protect everybody forever here in the town of Southampton. I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and do whatever's necessary to work with you to get it done.
all right, any other
Sure,
questions,
yeah.
comments from the town
I mean,
board,
as
or-
part of this process, we're certainly going to have to clarify those jurisdictions between the town and the trustees. We have a lot of overlapping lands and places. This is just common. And I also have to say I bristle a little bit when I hear about things being formed by the King of England before we were a country. And I'm happy that we are going to be having a public referendum on this to establish this moving forward by the people of the town of Southampton. So, we can go forward that
Yeah.
way. And the state of New York.
Yeah, I
We need a
think
democracy, right?
Yeah.
it's great communication. It's a great conversation. It's going to be educational for everybody, and I look forward to participating in the process with each and every one of you on the town board and supervisor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Bruce Stafford, do you want to add anything? You're good?
Thank you.
Okay,
That's it at all.
all right. So I'm going to withdraw my motion. I'm going to make a new motion, which is going to be to amend 579. We're going to add the letter A after each occurrence of the bill number in the Senate and the Assembly. And then at the end, we're doing, I guess it's an additional resolve clause, Kathleen? We're just adding it to the last resolve? Okay, adding to the last resolve, the language, the town board is supportive of said legislation, which, requires that the town board adopt a local law subject to, municipal? Was that?
Mandatory.
Mandatory, okay, the mandatory referendum, I see, pursuant to section 23 of the municipal home rule law in order for the provision, is that what it is? To take effect. Okay, I did it kind of shorthand. All right, thank you. So, do I have a second on the motion? Seconded by Councilman Lofstad, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and I'll make a motion to approve as amended, same second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. Congratulations, this is moving forward.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, any other business? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn the special meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Good morning, I'd like to call the work session of the Southampton Board to order this 7th day of June, 2018. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Okay. The first item on our agenda has to do with blinking light protocols on County Road 39 and Montauk Highway in Watermill. And we are joined by Tom Neely, our Director of Transportation, Intermodal Transportation, and with Chief Skranicki, our Town Police Chief. And there are two intersections where, for public safety reasons, they are considering blinking lights. And I don't know which one you want to take on first. Tom, you want to introduce us?
Maybe we'd talk about the Tuckahoe Road one.
Okay.
Because that one does involve some regulations that'll be before the board Tuesday night. Did a couple of points in common about both of these intersections, both of these signals. Both of them will be on in the morning, generally roughly from 6 to 8 a.m. as proposed, perhaps 6 to 9. Both would be expected to be in operation and blinking mode until the end of June. And both have been done before. This is not the first time that we've put either of these signals on blinking.
Now, you say to the end of June. The resolution, though, it goes beyond that. That's
I believe June, we amended it to, I think, Friday, June 29th. I think
Oh, you did
it is.
amend it.
Yes,
Okay.
we were able to change that.
The notice of public hearing has mid-July, but the notice of adoption, we changed to.
Okay.
Mid-June. And so Tuesday night, we'll just have to.
So it's like a
make that
two-week
clear.
pilot program, basically.
Right, right. So, you know,
Well,
talk.
it's blinking today. I just went through it this morning.
Which one?
The one on County Road 39. Yeah. So
Actually,
closed off.
yeah,
Like
we'll
10.
start with today. Start with this
We're
moment.
doing this to accommodate the open, are we not?
Well, June 7th, this morning.
Right.
It went on flashing because both sides of Tuckahoe Road are now closed. The north end was closed a while ago, as you know. The south end was closed this morning. So now it's on blinking from now until, I believe, June.
Yeah, it's not an intersection at the moment.
Right, it's not an intersection, so it's on blinking for the next
Imagine
couple
my
of weeks.
surprise.
The proposal is, and this is, you know, what we'll have the public hearing on, and,
Can I just ask, Tom, so that's 24 hours a day now it's on blink?
Yes.
Up until the end of the U.S. Open?
till the end of the US
And-
Open.
And the proposal would be then, after the U.S. Open, to blink it just from 6 to 8 in the morning or something like that?
Right, which,
Why are we doing that again?
I think we want to try again to see if it improves the traffic flow. The county, again, as we had done a couple of years ago, the county has been doing some test runs, timing runs, where they go from Flanders Road or 104 east to David White's Lane. Several times in the morning. They've done it in the past couple of weeks to get some timing runs. Then when we go back to normal traffic on June 18th, when the U.S. is, you know, no longer, kind of changing the dynamics of the road, then they'll go out and do some more test runs at that point, and we'll again compare kind of pre
This
and
is
post.
largely, this is the run-up to July 4th at this point, that every morning the traffic's been backed up, at least to East Quogue.
Right, I'm just questioning, we tried this once before, it didn't work. Is there anything that's changed that would lead us
Yes.
to believe that what's changed?
Well, a couple things. I mean, the last time it was just run for, I think, a couple days, and a lot of people were stopping. They would never had a chance to get accustomed to it, and so they're sort of coming to full stops at that blinking light. So the feeling was it wasn't really a long enough test period.
Did
In
it
the
2 years ago?
circumstances. Yeah, maybe a
2
year or
years
two.
ago?
I think it was 15, actually. I think
More than a year
Yeah.
ago.
3, yeah.
Can I ask what the goal is? I mean, when you say it didn't work, what is working?
Yeah.
Getting
so-
from the highway to Watermill?
Can you explain why, when it goes red,
Perhaps you are going to.
why that 1 minute wait turns into 5 minute wait, and why each time you have 1,000 cars, particularly heavy trucks, stop
Right.
and have to have the reaction time to start up again, and the gear cycles? So if you could talk a little bit
The
about
1 minute, the rule of thumb, I've heard from a number of traffic engineers, including the chief engineer from the county when they were here to discuss this with us last time, is when you stop traffic for 1 minute, it takes 5 minutes to unclog it, to get all that traffic, because you've got trucks, and there's actually sophisticated modeling systems now that show kind of this rubber band effect of you stop it, and they start, and these kind of start a little slower, and it just backs up. So, you know, if you're stopping it for 1 or 2 minutes, you know, every 4 or 5 minutes when it's in normal operation, you're starting that buildup, and it's a cumulative effect. So, and with regard to the last time we did it, I think we had, you know, kind of set a tentative goal of, you know, hopefully it would reduce congestion by 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I think what we found was that it was 3 to 4 minutes at the time. So we were kind of on the fence as to whether that was significant or not.
Have we set a goal this time?
You know,
I think we just want to see the number. So let's say, just for instance, let's say it is 10 minutes, so that for a person who's in that traffic, a school teacher, or nurse, whatever, every day, that's 50 minutes, almost an hour a week. You know, and if you take that out over the course of a longer period, I mean, it's a lot of a person's life sitting in that traffic, and it affects the local economy, it affects the ability for emergency services to get where they need to. What's interesting about this intersection is it's very manageable. If you're going up Tuckahoe Road trying to make that left at 7 o'clock in the morning, you certainly can go to St. Andrews, safely go under the County Road 39, and then come up and make a safe right. So it's not, you know, it's not really much of an inconvenience. And if we're really talking just very early in the morning, there's very few movements like that. So, and we've even talked about 5:30 to 8:30, right, as a possibility, because there's some, your people are making the signalization change, right?
Yes.
Right, and, you know, to that point, although again, this is written from, I think, 6 to 8 a.m., you know, if you do start a little earlier, you don't let that backup start.
Right.
You get it, keep it moving before even the backup begins. Now, you know, we did, you know, learn that there's certain aspects of this road when you're going from a free-flowing highway, Sunrise Highway, limited access highway, the vehicle capacity is much greater on a roadway like that than on a roadway like this. So, you know, with ons and offs and, you know, lots of activity and braking and turning and those kind of things. So, you know, I don't think we envision that it's ever going to continue to just be free-flowing all the way from Sunrise Highway east because of the nature, the differences of the road. But again, I think we're looking to say, can we improve it a little bit? And then when you combine it with, you know, what we're talking about in Watermill, where we did internally, and the chief could speak to this, the TCOs did some test runs, I did some test runs as to what you save when you go, when you put the signal at Station Road on blinking. I don't know if you want to.
So that's potentially another 10 minutes. If you combine the two, you're saving maybe 20 minutes of.
Right, you know, that, I mean, that would be.
A day.
You know, that may be a little on the optimistic side, but again, it's, if it's currently an hour from Hampton Bays to Watermill, you know, 15 minutes would be.
I think it's also
probably
important,
very
and we'll get to this conversation when we talk about Watermill, but if you can keep the main road flowing, you're going to see less traffic on the back roads. And you have a lot of residential roads that are de facto bypasses that have extraordinary levels of traffic that they were never designed for. So, you know, these little things, if they work, and I'm not suggesting we blink it all year at either light, just really this run-up to these major early holidays, Memorial Day, and July 4th, where you have so many people rushing to get those properties ready, that you have this incredible jump in traffic. I believe after July 4th, people are in their homes and you don't have as much of the construction traffic. But anyway, Chief, did you want to add to this?
Well, I think it's very worthy of retesting. As you mentioned, has been mentioned, we ran a time sampling in Watermill at the intersection of Station Road and Sunrise Highway, or at that point, County Road 39. And I have the statistics, a little bit crude, admittedly, this is not super scientific, but we asked a traffic control officer to time a run from the Princess Diner through that intersection out to the monument, which I think you're all familiar with, in Bridgehampton. the way that
Was he in an unmarked car or a police car?
he was just in a marked police, not a police car, traffic control, but he was in the flow of traffic. He was not doing anything to push himself beyond the normal flow of
You're
traffic.
saying that people slow down if they have a police car?
Well,
Well, they
could be
do.
either way.
They do.
But there was consistency,
They
to
do.
use the same car and the same method
So then we
of
could even-
doing this.
And we believe
We can
you
assume that
followed
if
the
it was
speed limit.
unmarked,
Okay.
it would have gone even faster, so.
So we started this, we did this test on 3 days, and three days in 1 week and 3 days in the following week. So on Monday of April 16th, he left the diner at 7 a.m., and he got to the monument at 7:19. That was with the light in its normal cycle. On the following Monday, with the light flashing, did the same run starting at 7, and he made it to the monument at 7:09. So it was a 19-minute time frame on the first one and a 9-minute time frame on the second. Not huge, but in terms of percentage, it's over a 50% reduction. Yeah, so it was nearly a 10-minute reduction from a close to 20-minute run to a 10-minute run. Same things seem to be consistent. On Tuesday, on 4/17, he started at 7. He reached the monument a little earlier at 7:16, so it's a 16-minute run. Following week, did the same run. He reached that monument at 7:07, a 7-minute run. Again, about a 50% reduction. Then on Wednesday of the first week, when the light was cycling normally, he started at 7, exact same time as he did on Monday, 7:17, a 19-minute run. The following week on Wednesday, makes the same run, gets there at 7:11. So that was an 8-minute saving. So between the 3 tests, and the run was about 19 minutes with the normal flashing, and it averaged about 9 minutes with the
good.
flashing.
Now, this is
Rather,
a
first
much-
one was with regular cycling, second one is flashing.
This is a much simpler intersection. Because
is. Right.
It's not a cross, it's just the T that goes into a shopping complex where at 8 o'clock, everything's closed over there. So, it's just a lot easier to manage this. We don't have to set up cones or.
I did some similar runs, just the findings were the same, that when it's in
I was gonna-
functioning mode versus flashing, you probably save about 8 minutes on just that portion from the document.
I want to say anecdotally here, I can tell when the light's blinking, because when it's not blinking, the traffic is backed up all the way to Pier 1, the Princess Diner area, and I'm watching all the cars go down Flying Point Road and work their way Wickapog, whatever, down to Cobb Road, down to Little Cobb Road, and then, of course, you have that merge, which even further slows down all the traffic. So I can tell when it's on blink, because that backup doesn't exist. And when it's not blinking, I can see it right there, right from here in the village.
And interestingly, we received no complaints during this little test period. No complaints from the community, no complaints from business regarding changing it to flashing. And in fact, to your point earlier, some of the residents living in the offshoot roads have indicated that traffic is less. So there are less people moving into those ancillary roads to bypass the traffic. So it seems to be, again, rather anecdotally, but it seems to be a win-win.
And we are, because this is Montauk Highway State Route 27, we have reached out to the state on this. As we said, this has been done previously. We've observed the site conditions, both the TCOs and I have been out there observing the site conditions, because there is a bus stop here. We are not observing anybody getting off the bus and going in here, because again, I was in there this morning. There's nothing going on at 7:30 in the morning in this development, and I'm sure the conditions are very different from the conditions that were expected when this development was approved, and that was put in as a requirement of the development. There's almost, I think, Beach Radio is in here and Soul Cycle is in here, but they don't certainly don't operate early in the morning. So we looked at the pedestrian traffic that might need to cross there. We also looked at the turning traffic. There's really almost no cars coming out of there, and the ones I observed were going right. But we have offered to the state as part of this process that if they felt it was necessary, we would put a TCO there if
Is there a queuing lane if somebody wants to turn in at 6 in the morning to Soul Cycle?
well, if they're coming this way, yeah, there is a left turn lane.
There is a left turn
Right,
lane.
and-
And there's not a lot of westbound traffic. It's all
Correct.
very little, so that's an easy left.
Right.
It's the people might be coming out of Soul Cycle and heading east at 6 in the morning that they would have to wait for that opportunity.
Right, which
Right.
they, at any other intersection.
Can you turn
anywhere
right
along
there?
the
Is, and then I guess you could turn
Yeah,
right,
turn
and
right.
You can make the right.
and
so-
then you could come around by the windmill if you needed to, right? And turn to head east.
Right.
Yeah, but you still
if-
have to pass that
if-
traffic.
If you had
Right.
to, but again, that would not be unlike, any intersection
one-
between Watermill and Bridgehampton or any intersection, west of here.
Right.
So, we are in discussions with the state DOT about this, and, we're hoping to get a formal letter of approval. We've been kind
We've
of,
been operating as like a
Expected,
public
right.
safety project, right?
right,
Yeah.
we wanted to do it partly as a test and partly, as safety concerns. My conversations with the DOT were that their initial engineering review didn't really have any concerns over it. And again, they've approved it in the past, so.
And we're closing this down
Time
same
frame on this is 5:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m.
8:30 and until the 29th of June, or is that?
We haven't set a finding, the board does not need to take any action on this with regard to, town laws or anything. We haven't set a formal end date, but I think we told them, just like with County Road 39, we're probably looking at the end of June.
And you with a TCO?
Well, we're not timing it at this point. We're going to
No,
wait.
are we positioning anybody at that blinking light?
At this point, no. We've observed it enough that we feel that it's a safe intersection while it's on flash. We're pretty confident that we don't need any police or TCO presence there right now.
Okay.
They have observed it, to make sure that that is the case, but doesn't seem to be any complications at all, and it does seem to have a significant improvement in traffic flow.
So, we're waiting, like I said, we're waiting to hear back from the state for some kind of formal input from them, and we'll, I think, act accordingly on whatever that is.
Have you looked at the issue? I think somebody, maybe Watermill CAC, had a concern that people whose driveways are on 27 depend on the periodic breaks in traffic that arise from the traffic light to help them get out of their driveways. Is that an issue here?
We have not heard,
Okay.
we've welcomed any commentary from them, and we've heard nothing, no negative comments
It's
whatsoever.
early enough in the morning, I think it's okay. As long as it ends by 8 o'clock, 8:30, I think
Right.
you're probably fine.
Again, going back to a little bit of what we learned on 39 in our numerous discussions with the county, because that issue came up with the blinking signal versus the full functioning signal here, and people turning out of Shrubland Road. And we were, which is, what, 3/4 of a mile or something to the east. We were advised at that time, by the time, because of the distance involved, a signal or not a signal really doesn't affect the flow of traffic, because again, it's kind of all, evening out. So, there may be some impact here, but again, I think it would be fairly minimal at, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning.
I'm looking forward to just one day. I watch News 12 pretty much every morning. And I'm looking for one day where that red section isn't, before that Shinnecock Canal.
Wait, I thought
know?
you were colorblind.
And every morning, like I look at the rest of Suffolk County seems to be flowing, but every morning,
Yep.
there's
Backed up
that
to quad.
section that is just not moving, so.
And, we do have the, what I handed out for each of you individually, we do have the permit from Suffolk County to go ahead and do this, if the board, approves. We have to enact traffic turn restrictions, then that'll be, the public hearing will be Tuesday night, and the resolution of adoption is on for Tuesday night also. So assuming the board, wants to go forward with that, we do have the permit in place from the county. We do have the coning plan, because we would cone off the left turn lanes.
So the counties, they've signed off on it.
They've signed off on it. We do have to do the implementation of the coning, and, we're working on, working that out now.
Okay.
So, just to change subject quickly, one thing I experienced this morning was, where you make the right-hand turn in Tuckahoe Road is now closed, and the barriers are there for the train. It's blind to people coming that way who are used to making that turn, and I happen to be one of them. And so a group of cars get stuck there, and then traffic keeps trying to go. There should be some notice that there's no right turn, or at least that turn lane should be
Good point.
closed
We
off.
can address
On
that.
39.
On 39.
If you wanted to make a right and go south on
Go south.
Tuckahoe.
Right, yeah, maybe the
Oh,
turn,
your people are going into
People
the turn
thinking-
lane.
the
They'll
off-ramp,
learn,
maybe you
but-
need to cone the off-ramp.
Yeah, we could
Yeah.
cone off that chute to make the right.
Yeah, just because a couple of people got trapped there, and
Yep.
then that slowed things down.
Hard to get back on.
Yeah, nobody would let them back on, that was part of
And
the
that's a
problem.
very good point. Easily corrected. We'll take care of that as soon as I leave here.
Between these two flashing lights, there are 5 intersections: McGee, Sandy Hollow, North Sea, and David White's Lane, and County Road 39 and 27. Have we given any consideration to doing anything with those lights?
One at a time is the way we're approaching it.
Right, I get it.
I think
But
we're-
yes,
right.
the answer to that is yes.
Maybe a skip
And I know where
light.
you're going.
There-
How much impact will one or two of these make if we don't do them all? But when we did the water mill, we saw a significant, albeit that's further east, and this is further west, though. So I think it's worthy of testing these two, which are essentially on the extremes of what you just described. And then if they both prove to save time, to take a look at some of these other, and some of them are more
Oh, I
complicated.
agree with you.
After
I'm wondering,
the road
in the
is over,
past,
so
have we
definitely,
looked at that and
Yeah, and
done
they-
any studies on those?
Previous discussions and work when we did this on 39, the decision was made that because of the school at McGee Street, we do not want to put that on flashing. There's just, again, too much, going on at that intersection. School
And I know that
buses
would
and
affect
all
local
that.
traffic crossing the road.
Plus, right, we want to be able to make sure that people north or south have an opportunity to find a place to across the road.
But the trade-off is the traffic on the back roads that we mentioned earlier.
Right.
I mean, if these two intersections lead to a 20-minute reduction in the commute time, that's significant. That's significant. I think the other lights, because I've looked at all of those, they're too complicated. Look, blinking lights is just one tool in a toolbox of solutions to our traffic problems. Roundabouts
Right.
keeps traffic moving. That might work for some I don't think any of the intersections you mentioned, but in other places, roundabouts could help versus traffic lights or stop signs, just to keep things
Right.
moving along. And there are other traffic mitigation ideas that could be looked at, bus lanes and things like that.
I mean, the Canoe Place Road signal is another one that, concerns have, come up about that since it's
Right.
been put in. The Flanders Road signals, which again are pretty new, of, there's always two sides, when you do traffic engineering, you try to solve one problem, sometimes, you can create other issues.
Yeah.
And
Right.
congestion is a side effect of putting in the traffic
To
signal. So,
some degree, we will live with the traffic, that people will get accustomed to it. Hopefully, more people will use public transportation.
right.
No, I was
That
at
kind of thing, but-
I was at a function last night, a school function, and one of the hot topics was traffic. So I think if we can mitigate it even a little bit, people are going to appreciate it.
And, I'm glad you mentioned public transportation because, of course, we'll be back talking about the South Fork commuter connection in probably the next couple of weeks with the board about the train and bus service for next February. But I do want to mention the U.S. Open. The Long Island Railroad has put their train schedule up. And Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they do have local eastbound train service that you can get on in Spionk, West Hampton, Hampton Bays, get off at Shinnecock Hills if you're going to the course, but you can also come on straight through to Southampton Village and to Points East. There's two in the morning,
All the way out to
and
Montauk?
there's all the way out to Montauk, and there's two in the afternoon. And again, they pick up locally Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they drop off in the village, and they drop off, Bridgehampton, all the other points east. So that's not been promoted because it's really designed for the U.S. Open, but other people, I myself, to get to the Open, I may get on the train in the village when it's going back,
Sure.
get off at Shinnecock Hills that way, so.
Is that schedule been published? Because I have had a couple of calls. You have that, Connie?
Yeah, we-
This morning, actually.
Yeah, CRC's put links to, there's also, local bus service, the train service. The links have all been put on the town website to all the public transit
Thanks,
options.
Connie.
There's a shuttle apparently in the village here, too, that will take you there. It may be only for village residents, but it will go right to the US Open.
I hope not, because it's either the train or that shuttle, then I'm gonna,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get
And it's
there.
a drone.
No, I
Personal
don't know.
The train
I've
schedule.
heard about it, I don't know the details on it.
Yeah, and that was, I think my understanding is the village and the chamber worked with the USGA on that, so that people can go from the open into the village, which is a nice thing, and people can go from the village to the open. So they worked with the folks at the USGA, and I guess it was just approved Monday or something like
And
that.
they're having something at Agawam Park where they have it
Right, and they're gonna have, I guess, a
televised
big screen.
for those who want to remain in the
TV.
village.
Right, right. But that all goes to your point about public transportation and trying to take advantage of that.
I do have one last question about the traffic in general. This is a regional issue. Do we know how much of the traffic that is going into Southampton town is actually going to East Hampton? Do we have an idea of maybe a percentage? Or?
We did a study many years ago, so it was many years ago, but I think we had determined that something in the range of 40% of the traffic entering County Road 39 was going on through to East Hampton. The other 60%
Either
was
through
getting off at
Bridgehampton
the
or
village or going
Sag
up,
Harbor.
north or
Yeah, that's-
getting off. But I
A
believe
lot of
about
that traffic,
40%.
though, that's going up to Sag Harbor is actually going to East Hampton or Montauk.
Well, we
But
know.
they're going through Sag Harbor because the main artery is not moving.
So what I'm reading here, and this is the plug for all of those people contemplating going to the US Open, that if you leave on the eastbound train from West Hampton at 8:45, you will get there around 9.
Wow.
So about a 15-minute ride, which typically takes me over an hour. So
15 minutes from where to where?
from West Hampton, leaves at 8:48, arrives at 9:03 at Shinnecock Hills.
Wow.
And I've suggested to a few employees that live west of here that are concerned about the traffic, go look at the train schedule.
That shows you how
Actually maybe work for you to get to
helpful.
work.
Next year in February, sometime in February, we're supposed to get the local train
Right.
that Assemblyman Thiel's been working on with the Long Island Railroad. And
Schedule somewhat akin to
yeah,
what
but it shows you. I mean, you could be able to go from West Hampton to probably to Southampton Village in 20 minutes or something.
Right, right.
You
It's
know.
really very fast.
Not an hour and a half, you know,
Yeah, right.
by car. So it'll be a game changer. All right,
Some summers it's been 3 hours,
Really?
you know, yeah. So,
Is that why you were late? No, I'm sorry.
yeah, I got here with minutes to spare, literally.
So, any other questions about this? I know we have somebody from Little Cobb Road who's here. Olivia, did you want to say anything? You're welcome to. I know you came out specifically for this conversation about the watermill light.
Thank you all. I just want to thank you all of you, for really working on this, because it's been a major issue for everybody on Cobb Road, Little Cobb Road, and most people aren't here right now, but I've lived here for 40 years, and I've watched it go from potatoes rolling into my driveway to cars literally rolling in my driveway, because I'm right from the corner to Mecox Lane, where they come around the corner, and now they're not just coming up, the traffic gets backed up, as you know, to Wickapog some days, or all the way to the highway again, coming around, but they're also coming up Cobb Road, seeing the traffic stop. They think, oh, well, I'll just go straight on out on Cobb Road to the highway, and so they're passing blindly into the other lane, going through the other lane, oncoming traffic lane, and pulling up, and I'm just waiting for there to be somebody coming around the corner and coming. They think nobody's coming the other direction, but it's extremely dangerous. But I've seen when the light is blinking, because I'm there all the time, and I hear the traffic every morning at 5 or 5:30, it makes a huge difference. I mean, I can really say it works.
That's good to hear.
It really, Tom knows, we've talked about this a lot, but it really, immediately, you see the difference, so you hear the difference, and
And that's a real testament to the public safety aspect, not just the timing of it. But she's describing people going around cars that get bogged down is extremely dangerous. And when you can eliminate that, you're really impacting public safety in a very positive way.
And I think it'd make a difference, even people coming out, and because if we get people off the back roads, coming out from the other side across from the windmill into near past the post office to make a left-hand turn, that corner is another, what's going to happen, you know?
When that's zippering in, that merge
Yeah.
that people did Little Cobb Road. That, in addition to the light, slows everybody down because you have everybody
stopping,
trying
starting,
to weave their
stopping,
way into
starting,
that
yeah,
single
yeah.
lane. So the more cars you can take off of Little Cobb Road, the more traffic will flow on the main road.
And it's now, you wouldn't, I mean, I used to send my nieces and nephews walking into the penny candy store. No one, I'm afraid to even walk, I do walk into town sometimes, but it's pretty scary, and I used to ride a bike in the morning down to the beach. No way, now, you wouldn't, it's made all these back roads very dangerous, but I really appreciate this work that's being done.
We're trying.
It's going to make a big difference.
All right, thank you, Olivia.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, anyone else on the board? So this was basically a work session primarily on the Tuckahoe experiment, where we're gonna try a 2-week pilot program there, get some new data in the run-up to July 4th weekend. We're gonna have a public hearing on this, right?
Tuesday night.
On Tuesday night. So this is really so that the board could have a chance to ask any questions prior to that public hearing. Any other
It's a
questions?
public hearing just to put the pilot program in place? or-
It's to go through June 29th.
Okay.
From when the open ends on the 18th
Right.
through June. So it's really just for,
The hearing
Okay.
says a
It's a good
date past
comparison.
that point, but that's what the adopting resolution has June 29th. The hearing notice has July 13th.
So you will have to make that at the open, that announcement or whatever, clarification
Well,
at the
it's-
opening of the public hearing.
Well, well, the hearing says that, but the adoption resolution, again, doesn't have that date, so,
My understanding is that as long as we make that clear at the beginning of the hearing,
Yeah.
then
Yeah, that's
we're
fine.
fine.
right,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Okay.
Good work. I know you guys are busy, Chief, good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
The US Open is
Coming together nicely then.
coming together nicely.
Happening.
What day practice rounds start, what, Monday?
Monday.
Rounds start on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Thursday, the championship begins. And the merchandise tent is open now, open today.
Okay, thank you again for all your work in helping make it a successful event.
And no rain next week, okay?
We'll try, that's the next item on our...
1986,
Well, maybe we can
they
pass
played in a
those.
nor'easter. Thursday was a nor'easter.
All right,
Lost balls, it was,
so,
welcome to the East End.
well, we're
Thank
gonna,
you.
I'll try to segue here a little bit, because you've heard me say many times that at least one of the contributing factors to our traffic is the fact that our workforce lives to the west. I mean, 80% of Southampton town employees live on the other side of the Shinnecock Canal. So, we've been looking at ways to reduce traffic, and one way certainly is by getting workers closer to where they live. Of course, the price of real estate east of the canal is particularly high. It makes it very hard to find places that are reasonably priced. So we've been looking at this idea after seeing the loss of so many members of our community who've had to leave the area completely or move to points west that were more affordable. It has caused us to kind of examine our accessory apartment laws, which typically provide a more modest rental price. So Diana, you're here. Diana Ware, our housing director. Kyle Collins, our director of land planning and administration, or something close. And Kara Back from our town attorney's office. So we have been working on accessory apartment legislation for a long time now. And I think we're ready to bring this to a work session to hear what you guys have to say so we can make any additional changes. I do think this is a critical piece of legislation. I think we really have to, currently under the law, you need 3/4 of an acre to have to add an accessory apartment. And a lot of the properties that might be suitable for accessory apartments are on half-acre lots, third-acre lots. A lot of the larger lots tend to be further from downtown areas, shopping, post offices, where you have to have cars to drive to everything. And So the basic, at the core of this legislation is it would create sort of a waiver if you had less than 3/4 of an acre and at least a third of an acre, I think. You could have an accessory apartment, but it would have to be in our program. So it would have to, the rent would have to be affordable. The person living in it would have to be income qualified. And this is really to, not only to relieve some of the traffic, but to restore a sense of community that we're losing. I took my daughter will kill me for saying this, but I was in Patchogue yesterday. We were car shopping. I went with my daughter, who's about to go back to Vassar, and we stopped for lunch or bite in Patchogue Village. And both of us commented that, like, there were young people. There were young people. Like, the restaurant was filled with young people. And my daughter says, like, why aren't there young people in Southampton anymore? She was kind of sad. And I said, it is kind of sad that they can't afford to live there. So it is, it is who we are as a community. I think it's really important that people have a decent standard of living and reasonable housing opportunities and choices. And all right, with that introduction, I'll kick it over to you, Diana or Kara.
I'll defer because Kara has been the lead writing the legislation.
So as the supervisor just mentioned, as this board knows, affordable housing within the township is at a critical point. Because of the limited availability of affordable housing, it is difficult for local employers to hire and retain employees. It is challenging for fire, EMS, and other volunteer services to recruit members. Although the town has benefited from increased tourism and second home ownership, the town board will need to find ways to increase affordable housing opportunities in order to sustain the local economy and community services. The community benefit accessory apartment legislation seeks to increase the town's inventory of affordable housing by expanding on the town's existing accessory apartment law to allow accessory apartments to exist on lots where they would otherwise be ineligible. In doing so, the legislation will further the intent of the town's existing accessory apartment law by providing housing opportunities for working residents of the town who are priced out of the housing market, and by providing senior citizens on fixed incomes the ability to continue to live in the town. The goals of the community benefit accessory apartment legislation are to provide a mechanism and an incentive to homeowners who are currently have a pre-existing accessory apartment on a non-compliant lot to bring it into compliance, to allow young people, working families, and senior citizens the ability to stay and live within the township by offering an apartment where the rent is affordable for people in the low, moderate, and middle income class. To provide additional income to homeowners and senior citizens on fixed incomes so that they can stay in their existing homes. To reduce the demand of traffic on the town's roads by providing additional housing on the eastern end of the township. To promote alternative uses of existing housing stock for the creation of new affordable housing units. I'm going to summarize the legislation as follows. A community benefit accessory apartment will be defined under 330-5 of the code as a secondary dwelling unit subordinate to a single-family detached dwelling, either as part of the same structure or detached, and where the tenant meets the income limits for low, moderate, and middle income under Chapter 216 of the Town Code. Low, moderate income is defined under Chapter 216 as a household making less than 80% of the median gross household income in Suffolk County. Currently, Suffolk County's median income is presently defined by HUD as $106,200.
Could you just explain what household, how do you define household for the public?
A household is, under our code, defined as people who are living together as a family. They may or may not be related, but if they're living together, eating together, working together in that kind of family group, they're defined as a family.
And the household income is what is required.
It's the
So two
average.
people working or
It's
three
the
people
total.
working, all the income of that household is what is used to
Okay.
determine eligibility.
So a family of 4 people could make up to $75,700 to be considered low, moderate income.
You said 80% of 106?
Yes.
So that's not for the
I get 84.
necessarily the owner of the dwelling. It's for the person who's going to be occupying this community benefit unit.
Correct.
So that I guess, if you don't mind, I'll just jump in quick, that the issue of owner occupancy. So if the aggregate is, or the total income and it's owner occupied, that's included with that family total income, or it's separated out. So if the owner, are we still requiring that the owner occupy that building?
Yes, so the owner will have to occupy either the secondary dwelling or the main dwelling, but the owner's income is not taken into consideration.
Right. But we still have the owner occupied requirement as part of this law?
Yes.
Yes, correct.
Absolutely.
Middle income under our code is defined as a gross household income between 80% and 130% of the median income in Suffolk County. So in this case, a family of four could make up to $138,060 to be considered middle income. Okay. The rent to be charged by the owner to the tenant may not exceed the max rent as authorized by the town board pursuant to resolution. In setting the rent amount, the town board follows the HUD formula, which allows approximately 30% of monthly income to be spent on rent. Looking at page 3 of the resolution that I included in your packet, it was attached to that packet.
It's not in this, in your,
So currently, the town board allows up to $1,248 to be spent on a two-bedroom rental for a low-moderate family, and up to $1,622 to be spent on a two-bedroom rental for a middle-income family.
And that, by the way, that formula, that 30% of your income to rent, you know, that's kind of a widely used figure, that anything more than that is unsustainable. It's a formula for
Exactly.
poverty.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
those families that we have out here now, some are paying up to 50% of their income or more. So they call those people income distressed, because they're paying more of 30% than they should. And that doesn't allow for, quality of life for food
It's
and
what
car and.
the banking industry uses when they are qualifying people for mortgages.
As well.
They use that standard as well.
Is that 30% of gross or 30% of net?
Gross.
Yeah.
But when banks do mortgages, they also use an income ratio that says if you're making this much, you shouldn't be spending this much, otherwise you don't qualify for a mortgage. So income doesn't always
If you
mean
make
you're gonna qualify
$100,000 as a family, you shouldn't spend more than $30,000 on rent.
on home, on your
And,
home.
but it's not, is it just rent, or is it rent and utilities and all those things combined?
It's
Housing
usually
costs?
what they call PITI, even though it's rents are qualified also, so it's your principal, your interest, your taxes, and your insurance.
That's
So-
for homeownership.
For homeownership.
On rentals, though, they do have a housing allowance, a utility allowance
Correct.
that is built into the rent. And that's what we use in our code right now. It has to include the housing allowance that's
Housing,
provided by.
and a more true estimate of the cost of providing housing.
Correct.
Okay.
And
Is
what
there-
part of town, go ahead, Julie.
Oh, you go ahead.
You go on.
What part of town hall would be administering this? This is a significant amount of.
Under
it
land
would be-
management and the director
Okay.
of housing, right. And you were
So each-
right, the 80% is 88,860, so that's a little typo in there.
Right. But that's not going to be written, it's going to be the percentage written.
It's always the
Right,
percentage,
right.
so it's always, it's
And
on
that
the
will change
website and it's
never
everywhere. It
reduced.
changes when HUD promulgates new numbers. Every year around this time, HUD, after the American Community Survey
Mm-hmm.
does their, census, statistical census, that will change.
Okay.
It
It's gonna
goes
be
up,
a
it goes
significant
down.
amount of work, or we hope that people take advantage of this. and work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the housing office will make sure that people are income qualified. They'll have to, keep tabs on this program, but
And do they offer, like, financial education to anybody who's coming through this program? Like,
We have agencies that we work with that give free counseling, whether it's credit counseling or financial training.
I think it's
to do
important.
that. It is important, because if people want to eventually, some people never want to have a home, and they probably shouldn't have a home. Some people are very happy renting, and we should have capacity to also house those people. But for homeownership and for rentals, if you have credit problems, there are many agencies that will help free of charge under HUD grants throughout.
just about, what you can really afford in life and what you
Right.
can't, because I think
Yes.
a lot of people
we do work with
Self-included.
them, and we'd like to bring some of that training out here as well, to do in town hall, for any, but that'll be something that'll come down the road.
Are you currently staffed to be able to accommodate this program?
Probably right now, yes, because I think that we would use the housing authority if we could get into some kind of agreement with them, which we have, because we subsidize some of their work, could do some of those income verifications. It would never be a huge amount. I mean, we're not, we'd have to see how this works out.
Well,
but
yeah.
Right, so
I have
right
a-
now,
I
we
have several
have a law
questions
that
about that.
allows, if you have 3/4 of an acre, and we don't have too many of those
We
apartments,
have
actually.
352.
Accessory
Currently,
apartments?
since we started the program in 2002, there's been 362 accessory apartments.
And there are no income requirements for those.
No, those are
Anybody,
market rate.
they could be summer rentals, they could be anything.
Well, they can't be summer rentals.
they can't?
But there is no income verifications based on market.
So that kind of leads me to the question I had.
I just have
I'm
one
sorry.
other follow-up question. So, if somebody goes through the process of getting a community benefit unit, is there a fee that they pay, an administrative fee at all to get that, or we're waiving everything?
In the legislation, you said you waived it.
Waived it all.
Yes.
Okay.
Is this a town-wide program?
Sorry, John.
Yeah, no, so this would be, right now, the way the legislation has been prepared, would not be town-wide. In order to participate in the program, the townships that would be eligible would have to have a median sales price of a home greater than the town's median sales price.
How was that? I applaud the effort to try and address this, because I do think we have to find a way to make getting accessory apartments where appropriate, perhaps more incentivized or a more streamlined process. In addition, bringing others that are not in compliance into compliance is certainly something we have to strive for, because we have many issues with that already. But I find this particular proposal problematic on a myriad of levels. While again, applauding the effort to address it, it's problematic. It would appear as though the effort is to force these, the eligibility to be able to even take advantage of these, to allow this relaxed zoning for areas of higher assessed values and where properties are valued more highly. So that seems to me to be a fair housing issue, because it's discriminatory on its face. So I don't know how we get beyond that.
I don't believe so. It's basically, we're taking the
Do we have
areas.
fair housing issues?
So,
We studied this issue.
yeah, so it's something that we in this draft of the legislation, we should consider. It's something to take a look at. What fair housing looks at is if the law is not discriminatory on its face, but it could have disparate impacts, it would violate fair housing. So what we have to consider is, are we saying, only the more wealthy areas in the town are being permitted to have this, this
Eligibility.
incentive?
And it appears that is what it is saying.
So what we're trying to do with this legislation is to try and promote these accessory apartments in the eastern end of the town, where the traffic is more problematic.
Can you do that in a
So-
constitutional way?
So
believe so.
it's something we have to consider. It hasn't been tested as of yet, but it's something we should really take a hard look at.
It's pretty understood that there's an economic filtering that's already going on, where working people are being forced to live only in certain sectors of the town because of, that's the areas that are producing the affordable units. To address that, to actually get rid of this, what might be perceived of as a discriminatory practice, is to do something exactly like this. So
But this
it
is
actually
purposefully
achieves-
discriminatory in
No,
its,
it
on its
addresses,
face and in
it
practice.
addresses an exclusionary nature within current zoning.
No, that's driven by the market. This is now tying our, even our density or our issue with where we're going to allow this to the market value, which we have absolutely no control over, and we're saying that only those areas that are assessed at a higher value are going to be allowed to take advantage of this. And I see
It's
the wisdom
basically-
in that, because you don't want to force it. I see that
It's a fair housing initiative, basically, to
it's
do
a fair
this.
housing issue.
I think it's a fair housing initiative. That's where we disagree.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Because it
So what we're
addresses
trying-
unfair housing
I-
by creating, you're spreading out the availability of affordable housing.
More concerning than that for me is the idea that we have an inability, as has been, statistically shown to us, have an issue with even enforcing the accessory apartment laws we have on the books. If you went strictly by the available lots that would now be able to exercise this option, you will have added in excess of 9,000 lots that could take advantage of this at any one given time. In addition to that, the fact that one hamlet could be eligible 1 year and not the other makes it problematic, because if they've added a structure that we've okayed 1 year, but the next years they're off, are we going to go back and make them remove a structure? Who's going to enforce that? It seems like an insurmountable amount of enforcement issues that could arise. I understand wanting to keep it out of the western areas where they're already dense, but
Exactly.
who's to say, right,
Well,
but
that's
who's
an
to say there
important
was,
point.
I'm
That's
not
what we're
finished.
doing.
I'm not
Right.
finished.
Yeah,
No, you're
yeah.
not. Because,
should
are you betting
revisit
against
that.
yourself? We're trying to help Hampton Bays. We're trying to increase all the vitality of Hampton Bays. We just had a home sale in Hampton Bays of $5 million. What if that falls into then a category 1 year where it's okay? The problem is there's no definite area that you've defined. You have it as a constantly floating target that we have no control over whatsoever.
Well, I think we do have control over it.
No, you don't.
I
It's
would
market
disagree
rate.
with that. Well, it's, to a degree, we have control over it. The
How?
market rate controls what we do. So, I'm not understanding why you're
Here.
what you're
me
saying.
show you.
But I had a question before that I can just make, I want to transition to this, because this has part of that.
We'll come back to this
It's
point.
part of that issue, and
Okay.
that the real issue I feel, most calls I get are for seasonal work, homes. And that's part of the problem. That seems to be the biggest problem, that our population quadruples. We have businesses that are coming to me saying, we don't have place for our seasonal workers, and that contributes a large part to the problem, which may be related to the issue that Councilwoman Scalera brought up. Where is that, where should that be located, where could that be located, and so forth. So I think I don't mean to conflate these two issues, but in fact, I think they are absolutely related. And I was hoping maybe you could comment on that.
I could jump in on that really quick, because this law does not address that issue. We do have multiple housing issues in this town. One is for year-round residents, and one is for seasonal workers. This is not targeted
And
for
I'm
the
thinking
seasonal, and we should probably
and I
take
think
an
it should.
initiative to do that, but that wasn't the intent of this.
That might be a better way to approach
This
it.
is, but we also have this need now, and that's why, and we can have another discussion about that issue, but that's not what this is about. This is
But I think
about
that issue
providing
is the pressure
year-round
that's where we have to
residents
do this.
to provide employees for existing businesses in Southampton, as well as the supervisor said, is to keep a sense of community that people can stay here. And if you grew up here and went to school here, and the community can get the benefit of the education that was provided by the tax dollars here, and we can keep that and benefit from that educational opportunity, because right now, we export that. All that good education we spend high money for goes someplace else, because we can't get the benefit
No,
of that.
nobody's going to disagree with that. And I
So-
think, but part of that.
That's,
is also
and that's
that
what
those
this
jobs-
is, that's what this is
Those
about.
jobs that are available here are largely, because we're largely a tourist economy,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a big part of the economic.
We do
And I
have-
agree with you,
to young
John, but that's a
people
different
starting
issue.
out.
John, we do have some ideas we're kicking around for seasonal workforce housing.
Yeah.
But, we've been working 2 years on this plan, which is not a seasonal workforce housing plan, it's a year-round workforce housing plan.
Yeah.
And I would, welcome a debate at a work session, some ideas that could help local businesses find their seasonal employees. It
Well-
might be a very different model than this.
Mm-hmm.
So I just would,
No, I mean, when I was asked to give input to this, that was one of the issues that
I just don't know
brought
if you
up.
could add to this to handle that problem. I think it's a completely different piece of legislation.
Well, I think
John,
we
can I
can be
just-
creative and maybe find a way
Tommy John, I
to.
know you want to say something, just to finish the question that John had posed, because we were in the middle of that. We don't have control over it because it's driven by the market. So whatever the market sales are, which we have nothing to do with, however the market sales, go, like in Hampton Bays, you had a $5 million sale just recently, and hopefully
Right.
all those sales continue to trend up. I don't want to bet against ourselves and hope it stays low so that we can't have this year.
No, I understand what you're saying.
But that's
I'm
fine.
only saying in the context of 99% of our market is pretty stable right now, and perhaps something would affect that market, and we would have an issue.
There are gonna be,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And we would have to define that.
So-
But
West Hampton fell
as
on
far as
and off in 1
percentage
year.
goes,
Yeah.
So,
I don't see that.
I want to
It's a high wire,
Well,
First of all, the data is easy to
Yeah,
check, and this is
because-
something that,
we're trying to fix so many different things, and we're trying to address so many unexpected outcomes. We don't want density in certain areas where there is already density, and that's why
North Sea
that
gets it.
solution.
North Sea is a-
But all those things, it may not be solved that easily. If it was that easy, it would have been solved a long time ago
Absolutely.
Right.
throughout the island.
Absolutely.
We have an extra burden because we have this seasonal population, we have the second homeowner population. Every mansion that's built requires more help, so that creates an issue. So I commend the board and Jay and everybody because it's not easy. It's not going to be easy. But this is our first run at it. And it may not be perfect, and we may have to go back and make some adjustments, but the goal was to, and in your defense to a degree, I get the fair housing issue. I am concerned about that. It's a very serious issue. It may never be challenged, but we do have to care about it because other communities have been, had problems with HUD.
That was one of the
and
main
have-
things that
Yes,
was
so
used
we-
at Spionk.
I get that, but the goal is like when they wanted to integrate communities, integrate schools, you have to do something that's sometimes a little odd to get where you want to get. But again, you have the risk of violating federal law. So that's a challenge that we have, and I commend you all, because I don't have to get elected, so I can say a lot of whatever I want. But we want to be
wait a minute,
sensitive.
that doesn't apply.
I want to
We want to be sensitive to those communities that are already overburdened, where there is already an immense amount of, low income.
I want to speak on this issue, but I know
Legal
Tommy
rent.
John's
Thank
been
you.
waiting to speak to Tommy John, and then
But-
I'd like to comment, and then Christine.
But again, just,
Yeah.
there are going to be a lot of different things that we have to address and may not be able to solve them all.
This is bold legislation.
It is.
And I certainly applaud the intent. And I know that we've heard from communities that are experiencing density, some of the issues that they're facing. They may actually want to take advantage of this. That's something
That's-
else.
that's
Yeah,
another
which-
thing, right,
Which we may
so-
want to consider as well. In one of our neighboring towns, they do allow accessory apartments in Brookhaven, and they have an accessory apartment review board. Have we considered that in this legislation?
what is the intent of that board, do you know?
Well, the way I read it, it would be an area for neighbors to give input to
Yes, they do.
a parcel
And
that
they
is
meet like
considering.
an ARB or like a
zoning-
ZBA or
like a zoning
BZA.
board.
Right, which we have contained in this
Can they right now,
law.
under the current law, if somebody wanted to build an accessory structure
done?
under
No,
the
I'm not
30,000
done.
square
Done.
feet, could they go to the
Tommy
zoning
John's
board?
not
Can we
finished
just
yet.
stay on?
Tommy John,
All right,
then
finish
myself,
that.
and then your...
Sure.
There's a lot of questions here.
Yeah.
And so, did we consider an accessory apartment?
Not
review
at this level. I don't
Right.
think we have spoken about that, but
board?
that.
And because I'm interested and concerned about neighbors, and accessory apartments do have an impact on a neighborhood, and we want to, I would like to give people the opportunity to have some kind of input, whether it's that, maybe, we don't have to create a board, or something. Right now, it looks like people can pull a permit, and if this were to go through the way it is, they could get a permit and build this structure, and the neighbors really wouldn't have any input.
Well, right now you can do that. This legislation only allows you to go from the minimum of 30,000 square feet down to 15 if they're required to be affordable units. Right now, you can get an accessory apartment permit.
So
But you're
that's,
talking
there-
about, to his point, you're talking about a much smaller lots where they obviously, I think, would have a lot more to say. And, Tommy John, just concurrent to that point, I would think right now, under the zoning board of appeals, if you wanted less than 30,000, you could get a variance, and that would give you that review.
and people do go to the board for
Right.
variances. Anyway, I kind of like that for the neighborhood piece to it, but I think this is bold legislation, and I do like it. And there is a need east of the canal for affordable apartments. I mean, that's clear.
I totally agree with
On
that.
its face, I support this.
There are provisions in this law to protect neighbors. I mean, in terms of having cars, they have to provide the parking. You know, and this is really, we're talking about what, a 1 or 2 bedroom?
Yeah, so
Apartment.
it would max 2-bedroom, a maximum size of 750 square feet. They have to provide, if it's a 1-bedroom, they have to provide 1 parking space off the roadway. And if it's a 2-bedroom, they have to provide 2 off-street parking spaces.
And we'll know these apartments are safe, they'll be in our program, whereas you have
How will you know that
apartments.
they're safe?
Can I finish?
Well, we're debating.
I know, but it's, you're interrupting me. I haven't actually even got to the point I wanted to, addressing your issue about the, you know, the median income or the median sales price. So they're in our program, so we know that they're going to have a rental permit, they're going to have safe exits, fire, carbon monoxide, and all those things. Whereas a lot of the illegal apartments aren't, we're not seeing that, with people potentially living in basements, things like that. So let me address the issue of this criteria that would not allow this waiver in terms of lot size in certain areas that are the most already affordable, where the market rate is producing housing. And I think that's the beauty of this law, is that provision. And once you take that out, then the areas with the small lots that are already producing most of the market rate housing will suddenly, they'll get even more. I think, you know, this is a really important provision. You're concerned that an area like Hampton Bays, you know, what if it starts going up in value, which we're starting to see, and now it crosses that threshold? Well, it's going to cross that threshold because working people can no longer afford to live in Hampton Bays. They're losing all the, you know, maybe at that time, they might need something like this because they will be losing that sense of community too. Right now, that's an area where much of the workforce is living. So that's kind of the beauty of it. If an area crosses that line where the people who work in that area can no longer afford to live in that area, it starts to create this opportunity. Now, you could put quotas on this. If you're concerned that some areas might get too many, we could say we won't allow more than 25 of these a year or 50 a year, whatever the board feels appropriate. It's something that you could end at a certain point if you feel it's producing too many. You know, and in terms of staffing levels, we don't know how many people are going to apply for this. It may be very few. I think, like I said earlier about traffic, this is just one tool in the toolbox. There may be other places where different solutions are appropriate. But right now, you can have an accessory apartment. You have to have a big lot. This will allow accessory apartments on slightly smaller lots in certain areas where there's very little affordability, but you have to be income qualified, and you have to, it has to be affordable. It solves a lot of problems, and we're keeping an eye on it through our program. I think it's a good law. It took 2 years to get here. I wanted this law more than 2 years ago, but it was tricky, and we did vet these questions, and looking forward
This
to
is the
getting it.
first time we're
Yeah,
vetting it.
no, I understand that, and that's why we're doing a work session, is to allow that. That issue of fair housing is something that's, you know, I'm keenly interested in, and, you know, I believe that this provision is exactly there to make housing fairer, and that you would not fail to a challenge on a fair housing action. So,
Just back to what you said, that we know that these apartments are safe, and we know that they have smoke detectors and all the things that we have. How do we know that? We don't know that with the apartments that exist right now, and we are adding.
Once they register for a rental permit and for an accessory apartment permit originally for the building of the apartment or for the coming up to compliance, you'd have to have an inspector go out.
Well,
Yeah, you get a building, you're getting a building permit in order to get it, and then, you know, you have a rental permit after that.
Right, and the rental permit seems to be taking out the building inspection, which is something I just got to ask you about, but we can get back to that. But what if you build something and then they're not eligible anymore? Are we going to go back there and make sure that
What do
no
you mean
one's
they're
living
not
there?
eligible?
They're not in the higher median sales price anymore.
No, once you get a CAC for your
get to keep
unit,
it.
you get to keep it, absolutely.
Well, you have to stay in our program,
But
though.
the tenant
I
is
guess-
then controlled by any.
Well, and then we're going to need additional code enforcement.
Yeah, because we can't enforce what we've got already. And I got to tell you, making 30,000 square feet and decreasing it to 15,000 square feet, when if somebody wants to take advantage of that, they already have the zoning board that they can go to and request that, is a truly significant increase in density and downzoning or relaxation of zoning in a whole host of, like, it's like over 9,000 parcels. That's huge.
Where are you getting that number?
Yeah, where are you
We're not
getting
backing
I
out
had
the- We're not
I
backing
had
out the
everything-
communities that are.
Yeah, I gotta
Yes,
vet.
I am. No, I have a map, and I have it all
That's
laid
no
out.
way.
and
I gotta
there's
vet that
9,000.
data that you got
That's from
from there,
Ross.
because,
It's upstairs, here.
no, I know, and I don't think that, because we pulled the numbers, it's probably more realistically, and I don't know if they took out vacant lots out of there, because a vacant lot wouldn't.
This is every,
necessarily-
no, right now it's vacant, but
But-
every lot that goes from 15,000 to 30,000 square feet
Mm-hmm.
arguably would be eligible at some point if this goes into existence, and that is over 9,000 lots.
So you're not backing out the
Including lots between
ineligible.
30,000 and 15,000.
Yes, I'm only including
At
what this
9,000
does
lots.
additionally.
Okay.
Okay.
Right
then
now,
put a quota then
there's
on-
lots there's 16,456 potential lots that could have accessory apartments today.
Right.
Since 2002, of those 16, only 352 have actually chosen to do that.
That you know of, because we also know that there are a large
Well,
number
other-
of
Illegal ones.
illegal ones
But
that
this
we can't
potentially
even-
will bring those
this adds
illegal
no-
ones into that.
And this added 9,000 lots to
I
that.
think you're comparing apples to oranges here.
How-
The illegal apartments have nothing to do with the legal apartments that we're trying to
But
create.
one of the goals it's saying is trying to bring the illegal ones into compliance.
That's
Most of
correct.
those illegal ones exist in the areas that you've excluded from this legislation.
Well, those won't
Well,
be able to
those
go
won't
into
get
compliance.
picked up by this. You're absolutely right.
we're
That's
not
more about
doing that.
code, that's more about code enforcement to address those illegal housing units in those
It is,
things.
but-
So it doesn't get affected
Kyle,
by here.
I understand that, but Kyle, you have to understand as a board member who sits and is in charge of not only housing and land use,
Yeah.
but code enforcement, we have to look at this holistically. And what we have already demonstrated as a significant problem in enforcement, we have now potentially, with the advent of this, enhanced that by 9,000 lots now that we potentially will be looking at over the next several years that may take advantage of this. And I'm not, so, I understand the intent, and I think we all agree with the intent. I just don't think that this broad stroke is the way to proceed, and, we can continue to debate it, but,
Well, the
and we
fact
will do it further.
that there are illegal apartments tells us that there's pretty significant market demand for this kind of housing.
That may
And
be.
people are putting them in outside the law. And
But not in the
I mean,
areas
and
that are
there's
being
something
targeted
that-
here for some reason.
we should probably address that.
Absolutely, and we should address it with stronger, I think, stronger code enforcement and maybe relaxing some of the accessory apartment, review process. I don't know, we'd have to look at that and maybe streamlining that or giving incentives for, for doing that, to enhance it, but to increase it by this substantial amount
Well,
without
I'd
the
wanna see-
supporting code enforcement or proven record of being able to enforce our own codes, I think is just,
Well, first, let me say, you could easily put
Dangerous.
a max, a cap. We could build that into the bill, that we won't do more than 25 units or 50 units through this program. So then that ends that issue.
Forever?
Well, the board can revisit that at a future time. Say, we're gonna try this as a pilot, and we'll allow 50 units to be built on it, and then done.
But what if
That
somebody-
solves, let me just
yeah,
finish.
yeah.
So right now you have 16,000 lots, you were saying, Kyle. So you have-
Potential.
that currently exist, that currently could have accessory apartments, 300 or so have accessory apartments, so you're talking about 2% of the lots. If your number is right, which I don't think it is, I don't think it
I got
excludes
it from
the areas.
GIS.
I don't think it's excluding those areas that you can't do it under this law.
It is, no, Jay, I want to be clear about the information I got. It is exactly the increase from bringing it from 30,000 square feet to 15,000 square feet.
But then you have
Yes.
to back out all the ineligible communities.
They're only ineligible for a freeze frame in time, so you have to look at them as always being eligible because it fluctuates.
I don't think that's fair.
But
So
that's
basically,
market.
right now.
But I think what you have to do, in order to address your
I
concern,
think
it
yeah.
shouldn't be done on an
Plan.
annual basis.
Right.
You should be looking at the housing sales over a longer term period. Say you do it over a 5-year period, because then you won't have that fluctuation annually. You have to look at it over a longer period of time.
you could
The
do that.
concept comes right out of the 99 comp plans. We should be targeting affordable housing in those hamlets that have, that affordable housing is more scarce.
And you're
And
supposed to
those
be
are
doing
those.
downtown areas. That's where you're supposed to be doing
And
it.
these smaller lots are generally found within the downtown
Downtown
areas
area.
in close proximity
Which
to the downtown.
cuts your
A lot of
which
these ones
cuts
that
your
you're getting are
9,000.
not.
So if
A
you
lot of
had-
these areas in North Sea are not around there. They're all around the water and wherever else
Before
they
you
are. away
scare
from Main
everybody
Street.
with this
Yeah.
9,000 figure, I
Oh my
think
God.
it's, no, it's, because it's not
Jay,
true. Because,
first of all-
wait a second, Christine, let me finish. The law
Well, don't
as,
say I'm scaring people with a figure that's not true.
it is not true.
It is
Okay,
true.
because the law as written does not allow this in every community. And some of the most dense communities like Hampton Bays have a lot of those smaller lots that would qualify if that community qualified. So the actual number of properties that would qualify, those less than 3/4 of an acre and more than, let's say, 1/3 of an acre, 15,000 square feet, in those qualifying communities, is going to be much smaller.
This
And then
year.
if you took 2% of those, because that's basically, but based on the current law, 2% of the properties, you're probably going to end up with a number probably less than 100. So the 9,000 is scary. We're not
But it's
allowing
real.
9,000 accessory apartments.
Jay, you have to look at this as a legislator. And as a legislator, you have to look at what the potential for the entire program, if it were to succeed or be done or looked at properly, would yield. The potential for the possible yield would be 9,000. If 9,000 property owners that met this,
No. It's not true. It's not true because
I mean,
most
you
of
don't
those,
want to legislate for
Ms. Scalera,
the entire.
those
Christine-
properties that you're counting are ineligible under this program.
Are
First
you-
of all, they're not ineligible.
They are.
North Sea is eligible. 1,193 parcels were added.
Okay.
And I can do this for each year. And it differs because West Hampton, 1 year was eligible and 1 year was not. Shinnecock Hills or Tuckahoe, 1 year was eligible, 1 year was not. And we can do it from 2015 to 2018. But as a legislator, you can't just legislate for the year you're sitting in. You have to legislate with a law knowing that it is potentially could be used and ostensibly, if this is your law, you want it to be used.
So
don't you?
your
Well,
number
yeah, but your
includes
largest
all,
number is Hampton Bays,
on, guys.
2,633, which is not eligible.
Christine,
So
your
you're
number
inflating the
includes,
Right now, it's
Right
not
now,
eligible.
yeah.
Can we have some order here?
Tommy John?
Christine, your number includes every community in Hampton Bays. I mean, I'm sorry, in Hampton.
In the town of
Sa- In
Southampton,
the town of
correct.
Southampton.
Correct.
So assuming that every community is above the median housing sales price of the town, I mean, how does that work?
I can't.
It just
It's like all kids are above
mathematically
average.
doesn't work.
That's not-
If everybody is above average, the average increases, we will always have this kind of balance. So that's why the number 9,000 is not necessarily an accurate number. I understand what you're saying, that we do have to take this into consideration. But I like Jay's point about if you're in a community and the median price goes up, well then, if you're a young person and you're trying to buy in that community or live in that community, you're going to need something like this to remain there. We need people in our ambulance and our fire department.
Absolutely, nobody would argue that.
I really hope that the Bridgehampton sign no longer says, "We need volunteers," and something like this will help that. And,
Something like,
so
I'm not
think that
objecting
help. I
to
the
certainly
entire
think we
town
need to
in a
help.
A
median
cap
housing.
settles the whole
legislate for
thing.
today.
Right, and I
Although I
think
think
we're
your
getting
number is
hung up
grossly
on.
inflated, I think if you set up a cap, you solve that issue. Say, okay, whatever, 25 units, I'm okay with that on a yearly basis.
With our ability to expand on that, should demand it.
I just don't understand if we can
Well,
find a way.
the reason I was trying to speak,
What was it?
if you allow me to speak, this is important for a whole bunch of reasons, and I don't think that you draw a line in the sand and say, okay, we're going to legislate as of today. That's not the idea here. The idea here is to provide young people with housing income. We can control that as legislators. We can create a pilot program. We can do that. We can incrementally increase this as we see the demand. So I don't agree with you when you say that that's the number.
The way it's written is, it is. If you want to do it your way.
All right,
and have a
but that's
different
what
review, you
we're
can do
supposed to
that.
be discussing
We are
here.
discussing
But
it.
you're,
The back and forth is very hard.
Yeah, it's very
Finish your thought,
difficult.
and then
It's all
I'll-
debate. Why
well,
so hard?
I'm done, thank you.
All right, go ahead, Christine.
I have nothing to say.
I got three. I got
Julie.
3 things to say. 2 are just general comments. I understand why we're doing this, and we don't want to put it in places such as Hampton Bays because it's already dense. But the other part of the intent of that legislation is keeping seniors in their homes, perhaps because they can't afford it. Well, there's a lot of people maybe in Hampton Bays that need this extra help. So I'm wondering what we do there. And I understand you can't solve every problem with this one, but something to think about.
Well, maybe that could go through a waiver committee like Tom
Okay,
John was
that's
saying.
only one. I got
If
2 more things,
There
real
was some procedure
quick.
then for, if you were not on a list and you wanted to apply, that there was some procedure.
And my other concern is this list of bullets of what is going to be checked by, whether it's some sort of new department to check it. It is going to cost an increase in staff, and I'm wondering where is that, you checking the income later on down the road, checking to make sure that the apartments are safe. It's a lot of different things that need to be checked, and I think that's something we need to think about. And my third question is a specific one. Under A, owner occupancy required, it says the owner or owners of the lot shall reside in the principal dwelling or the accessory apartment. How does that affect a senior's star tax rebate?
The homeowner is always going to be the homeowner. If he has two eligible and qualified building units, an apartment and a house, he's got a 3-bedroom house, and now he's got a 1-bedroom apartment, or she. She could move into the apartment and rent out the home.
And still be safe with
And
their
still
star.
be safe with the star, because they're still the owner of the complete unit. So that doesn't affect the ownership. It affects about which part of the house they would be living in. So that would not be a challenge, and believe me, that's something that a lot of seniors probably would like to do, because, they don't need the 3 bedrooms and, the extra den. They want to move into a smaller space, and if they can do it in their own home, so be it.
How did
So
you say that?
could I, so to
Wait,
Ms.
sorry,
Scalera's
this time
point.
Christine was next
Well,
in line.
I wanted to,
Okay.
because I didn't have a chance to answer you before. And I understand what you're saying. So the debate here is to make this change to the legislation, which is if we're in fact eligible for 9,000 parcels, which I don't think we are based on this discussion.
Well,
then let's move on to, we have a whole bunch of other questions here that we need to get, started. I would assume we're going to have several work sessions on
Yes,
this.
so.
But, I do take, Kyle's numbers, I believe, but we do have the ability to control that. We can put a restriction on it, we can put a cap on it, and I just want to, be really clear that I support this, I like this idea. Obviously, we have some kinks to work out, but we're
The
in the process of
eligibility
getting
for
there.
the areas is a little kink that we have to work out, because you're all sensitive to the density issues and the fact that we have these existing conditions in those density areas. So a lot of the ineligible or illegal apartments are in those areas where people need the money, so we get that. So that's what I'm saying, it's a tightrope act. You got to figure out, can we use a metric that is going to change? Do we allow more years into that metric so that it's more equitable? Because right now, the way it exists, it is difficult.
And the
even
cap
if we
on the-
grandfather them in.
And
So
possible
these are
cap on the number of permits issued per year.
That's fine. You could do 25 a year.
Can I ask
Done.
you, just clarify just one thing? When you said that if someone is eligible and let's say they build a new structure, they're grandfathered in when they fall off eligibility, so the structure stays there?
Yeah, you have a CC for you have a
That's why the
CC.
9,000 is real.
You have a CC.
Okay, thank you.
So, I
And
mean,
then
and
with
it's
the
only fair. I mean, how can you tell somebody, because those areas that are borderline, like North Sea.
Right, the North Sea's not choice,
Remsenburg, the
West
values.
Hampton.
Right, there's a difference between eligibility and
Yes.
reality.
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
Well,
And
in
and
current-
I'm saying we can
current-
control that reality by putting a cap on permits.
But that's why, those are the areas that I'm saying, it's a tightrope, obviously, and
temporal.
this is you guys, think about the community out there, what we're gonna hear, so
Yeah.
Sure.
this is a needed legislation that we have to have, because we do need accessory apartments, we need rentals,
Well, it's an issue we
homeownership
need
is
to
not.
address.
Yeah, so these are
Exactly, we're
the.
trying to.
And I get that, and I applaud your
The
efforts. to try and do it.
challenges,
I
but
just
I
disagree
think
perhaps
this
with
is
how you're doing it.
a major
Well, I think there may
effort.
be ways to address your
There may be,
concern.
there may be.
Putting a cap on the number that's allowed or that will be issued may solve that.
Maybe the metric, making it more equitable by having more years, because things are changing quickly now. If property values go up quickly,
You just had a $5 million
then again,
sales.
right, so then,
Great.
so those are the kind of things that are probably workable if you work together and try to figure out what that could be. I think Kyle's idea was good. I think all the ideas we're going to have to work through. This may not be perfect at this point in time, but it is just a change to our existing, just to remind you guys, we have an existing accessory apartment
And people do
law on
have a
the books.
variance process right now, for anybody listening that wants to take advantage, and they do have a small lot, they can come right now before the
Right,
zoning
so,
board of appeals.
and that's one of the things that I would like to say, if we really want to bring existing accessory apartments up to code, people could do that now. Of course, they'd still have to pay their fees. This gives a couple of
Maybe
incentives.
we should waive those fees. and-
Exactly, so there may be ways to work this in, we do have it, I think this is a tremendous effort, but those little things we can tweak. If there are existing people that have a great, maybe it's a garage that they've converted and it's good and they don't have to
Getting a
change
barrage of
windows and do
judges
that.
coming in.
Oh,
I don't
boy.
know where this is going.
But I mean, I think that
That's cool,
we can work with that, and maybe there is something that we could tweak in the code even further. So I just want to say, I don't like you guys to argue, but it is going to happen.
It's a healthy debate.
We argued.
Healthy.
We argued as we're writing it.
This is what we're
So
paid
we-
to do, actually.
But I mean, but we've argued, on a lot of different things too, because you almost can't think of every possible permutation of what the effect
That's
is
why we
going to
do
be.
this.
Yeah,
It's
so-
healthy and it's helpful.
We just
Yeah, that's why it took
respectfully
3 years to
disagree.
get here.
We may in the end do that, but that's okay.
But
Yeah.
it's okay, but I think, the concern about density, I think we can put a cap. I have no objection to adding a limit as to how many permits, 25 a year seems like a reasonable thing. So, that could help address that issue. There was something else I wanted to add to, the density thing is kind of it can be tricky because, we have a lot of homes right now that are only occupied like a few weeks out of the year, 6 weeks out of the year. I mean, the fact that our workforce doesn't live here doesn't mean they're not in the community on a given, 12 o'clock in the 12 o'clock in the middle of the day at noon. They're here. We have all these people here. It's just that they're going to have to leave later, because the amount of people we have here is directly related to how many jobs we have here. What we can potentially, even though we may have more people living in homes, we'll have less traffic, we'll have less cars on the road because the people filling those jobs will be living closer to where those jobs are. So even though it may be more density, the feeling of the feeling within the community may feel actually less dense, more relaxed.
We want to keep our community character, though. That's my concern, and, listen, we'll continue to work together,
You
debate,
understand my
whatever.
point,
I
though,
understand
so
your
that
point. I get
they're
your point.
here, it's just that they're not
Okay.
sleeping here.
So what direction would you like us to continue to move this forward?
Well-
There is
Well, I'd like to
density-
I
see
still have a
language,
lot
I'd
of questions.
like to see the language for the cap developed. I think that would be fine.
Okay, to limit a certain amount per year.
Right, the board shall set at the organizational meeting the amount.
I think you need to look at the fair housing issues
Yes.
more in depth also.
See, I'm just going to throw it out there, but why not make it town-wide? And if you have a limit of 25, how horrible can that be for any
Well,
community?
I don't know. I
Just
bet-
throwing it
yeah,
out there.
I'm trying to
it's a
make it so
problem.
that it will only go in the areas that are the least affordable. That's why for me, I need to see that stay in it.
But
Okay.
maybe that's why we just work on incentivizing further what we have on the books, and hopefully that would also actually affect the goal of trying to bring those that.
But I hear
or an
Dave's
amnesty
concern,
period
well,
to get
25
them.
might happen in
I mean, if
Hampton
you have-
Bays, so I
Right,
don't.
exactly.
Well, and-
You don't want that, I'm saying,
we don't want
if
that.
an amnesty period, maybe that would incentivize people who with illegal apartments to come in and come up to code and do what they have to do to get their permits. I mean, that, to me, is, keeping
Well,
what's on, so we know what's there, because Hampton Bays, we know is overridden with illegal apartment
Yeah,
rentals.
no.
It's just
And
not.
some of
Well,
those
I
may
don't-
never be able to be brought up.
I don't know if I would-
So, you know.
That's a bold
That's-
statement. Let's not
that's-
say
that's
overridden. and
overridden
let's-
with
let's not
illegal
say things
apartments.
One of the
like
highest
our
areas
code.
that we have.
Christine, I get it, but please, let's tone down our rhetoric.
Why?
And,
There's nothing wrong with
Overridden
overridden.
with illegal apartments is a bold and frankly
Relative
irresponsible
to,
statement.
relative to
Thank
the
you.
town.
I mean, that's why.
It's the highest.
And I really think we should be careful. I like this. Let's not let perfect get in the way of good. And we need housing in the east.
I'm not
And
arguing
it's a
that.
traffic issue, it's a Hampton Bays issue. I mean,
Sense
it's
of
a
community issue.
town-wide issue. And you bring up good points, and I like a cap per hamlet. If we're going to do caps, and not the
See, that's-
town-wide, but a percentage of
That's
lots.
what I had said way back.
Okay. But look, I'm just thinking here at the table, like, we need to do some more work on this.
Well, there
They
was
could
a
I-
study years ago, the Long Island Regional Workforce Housing Study,
County.
right,
2,000 units.
which did establish on a kind of a zip code basis or census tract basis what the needs were. I mean, if you were going to try to do a kind of a hamlet-based allocation of need, that might be one way to approach that. We
What does it
actually
look like? Like, what would that look like?
Can I ask a question?
John, go ahead.
This is a specific question. You have 2-year leases, a lease here, and as part of the requirement of that.
similar.
Is there potentially a way that we
Those
can
wealthier areas would have more.
connect that to code enforcement?
Yeah,
So that,
It kind of is.
It is.
Because the rental permit is issued by code enforcement.
Right,
They're the ones who go out and do the inspection. It's a
Inspections.
2-year
but
period.
the next part of that was how we market these may be the way that that can be handled. In other words, some people will look the other way, not intentionally, but we have, clearly we have people who have rentals without permits. Their worry may be, the worries that I've heard, I don't want to have an inspector there because I don't want to get hit with all these costs. And,
vortex,
you know, so it drives it deeper underground instead of bringing it out. So if you go to a rental, a real estate
Inspection.
office, no, to a real estate office, I'm looking for an apartment. That real estate office isn't going to inquire about the permit status of that rental. They're not going to do that. I think there's creative ways that we can do this to satisfy a big part of that issue. Most people want to have safe homes, they want to have safe rentals, they want to be responsible homeowners, they want to be responsible landlord. So I think we can find a way to mix this, and I would ask that if you might come back with some of your thoughts on that, what we're legally able to do that, linking the lease to the town in the administration of this permit so that we can help those homeowners. And then you'll continue that. That will almost make it a requirement for code enforcement to be part of that. When that lease is up, that's a trigger for code enforcement to go to that property. Not by call,
Right.
but by part of the process.
So our govern system, which is where the GIS information is drawn from, is pretty comprehensive. And we're creating a housing page where the assessor's office, the building department, the controller, whoever needs to access, when they access a file or a record, a property record, that record will contain all that information, and then it can be drawn as well by date. So we're creating a page so that if I need to know all the leases that are up this year in rental units, blah, 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 plop, I'll get a spit out of what they are, and then follow up. We're not talking big numbers right now. I mean, you know, even the rental units that we have, they're only 364, obviously out of 16,000 that were eligible town-wide. So I think it will grow slowly. I don't think we're going to have a crash of people coming in and saying we all, 400 people are going to try to get this accessory apartment. But we do have a way of finite tracking.
And we have a
all
way,
these-
what you're describing, that we can grow with that. So if that does increase, it's not going to overwhelm a system that's already built.
And
with that in
eventually,
mind.
we probably will need more, this, if
And then
it
you would
is a
budget
growing
for
program,
it.
because right now, we haven't been tracking anything that we currently have. We have found some accessory apartments that existed that nobody knew existed. So in our
But there's the
process right
business
now-
of illegal rentals. Let's
is
be
a
honest, there
business,
is a business of illegal rentals.
Yeah, but I think putting a cap either by Hamlet, so that we're not dealing with different fair housing issues, or figuring out a way of how to do that, and being able to provide a backup to why we did that, I think is a process. So,
It actually may not, those hamlets might be okay because they may already meet the cap.
so there are ways to do, we'll go back to the drawing board and try to figure it out and talk to you again individually.
I don't think you
and
need to
see-
go back to the drawing board. I think you got something
No,
good
I'm
here.
saying,
Yeah, let's-
well, we're tweaking, we're not gonna-
Don't go back.
Again, remember, this is based on our existing accessory apartment code, so we're not going back to creating a brand-new code. We're trying to tweak this code to allow creating apartments where we think we need them by socially justifying that these areas should have more
Right, so we're
buy
relaxing
into
the
what
code.
our problems are. Because
In certain
remember,
areas.
everybody should share in this, we need affordable housing, every
I think it's a good
community.
approach, yeah.
So I think we can go back and try to work on it again. Obviously, this is good. We'll get a lot of calls. I got calls this morning from some businesses already saying, oh, you're doing this, can we look at it? I said, this is our very first public look at it. I mean, Kara's been working on it, and Kyle even before I got here, and we've tweaked it to, we think, where we can move forward. So we will continue to talk amongst ourselves, talk amongst yourselves, and then amongst
again, so
yourselves.
ultimately-
And then we'll talk to you guys individually, because, Tommy John is new. He hasn't had a lot of opportunity to delve into this whole housing thing, though he's right on target with a lot of what he's saying.
I
So-
did serve on the zoning board before.
Oh, there you go.
We had
So
many of
forget
the-
I said that.
No, no,
I value his opinion.
Well,
on
that's the
this.
way it's been going, is that people
As
bring
well.
those apartments to the zoning board.
Yep.
That's what they do.
Well, that's why I know about these things. I'd like you to keep the median housing sales price language in, for me, as one person.
I think the only thing we're going to change that is how we read it, and instead of doing an annual, do a 5-year, so you don't have that fluctuation. You'll have some predictability of where those things
like
are going to
that.
be.
I'm okay with that.
And with some of the questions that we may have that didn't get to today, I can forward them to all three of you.
Absolutely, or, we have a meeting monthly, on housing issues, so we can flesh some of those things out.
Flesh out the fair housing.
Yeah, but,
Well,
all
we've
those things
talked
are
about that a lot.
justifiable concerns. I mean, we have concerns. I said this isn't going to be zip,
No,
it's in
but
there.
listen,
But we'd like to move it quickly, so
This
we
is
needed
why
to
it's
do
taken this long to get it here. Look, the thing I think we all agree on is we have a crisis. We have an urgent need to create some affordably priced housing. Too many people have had to leave our community. And,
Too many young people.
Too many young people. So we have to do something. The attempt here was to relax an existing code to create some affordability in the areas that were least affordable. I understand that it may be imperfect, so we're going to try to address some of the concerns that people have, fair housing issues, whether we need to establish some quotas or max thresholds that we don't go beyond to make sure, if just in case lots of people want to take advantage of this. I would say one other point on illegal apartments that try to legalize, a lot of them will not qualify. Some will, but if you are a tenant in an illegal apartment, you have no lease. It's a very tough situation not knowing, whether code enforcement's going to show up and you're going to be out on the street. So it might give some safety to people who are living in apartments that might qualify under this
You
program.
have some recourse.
Yeah, it might create a little
good
bit
point.
less stress of an environment for those that do qualify. I think very few will, but some will. But anyway, that's all I want to say. So what I think we'll do is you heard the board. You're going to look at the fair housing issue one more time. You're going to look at language that would be a cap of some sort, and
And an adjustment to the metric,
Yeah.
and then we'll come back and we'll do this again. But there is this clock ticking. There is and as that clock ticks, more people are leaving our community. So
And Kyle, if you would look at the numbers as we discussed, and we can get a better sense.
Yep.
Thank you.
okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much, thank
all
you.
right. Thank you, board.
Good, really. It's a lot. If I weighed it by, if I did it by weight of legislation,
Well, it did require, although it was a change to the accessory apartment law, it did require changes to our rental permit.
and all, yes.
Yes, a
all-
lot of
Affordable
different areas.
housing, yeah, so it's 4 different sections.
Which we needed to do, so
Yeah.
it's.
Thank you very
And
much.
I understand with the board, a lot of the concerns are about community character. But in the definition of community character, I think we do have to include, all the people who live in our community. And they're part of who we are. All right,
Thanks.
Thanks.
all right. I'm up to review of draft agenda, right?
Yep.
So let's jump into it. And there are a couple add-ons as well.
Do you want a copy? We wasted all this paper already.
Okay, so this, and I know Cindy, you need this so you can print it, so we'll try to get through this as quick as possible.
Thank you.
This is for June 12th. That will be Tuesday, next Tuesday here at Town Hall. It's going to be an evening meeting. It's a 6 p.m. meeting. And let's start out with public hearings. There are a bunch of them, 8 of them. First one is to consider acquisition of lands of Robusto in Riverside. Second one is it's a public hearing on the acquisition of lands of Peconic Bay Marina, Shinnecock Hills. That is the Lobster Inn. That's that property. I forget how many acres on both sides of the road there, for a new town marina, a concession, and a fish farm and some open space. Number 3 is a public hearing to consider the acquisition of development rights of Mana Ocean Foundation, Inc., contract vendee, Shinnecock Hills, and amend the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property. Those two are connected. That's part of the same acquisition. Number 4 is a public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 23 to require disclosure forms in connection with town applications. Number 5, public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 162, filming to exempt from the filming permit requirements shoots involving 25 or fewer individuals. So that would be a change. I think, Christine, you're behind that, right? Number 6, public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 177. It's our septic rebate incentive program to amend the procedure for rebate payment. This is the money going to those advanced wastewater systems, correct? That would
Yeah, there's
be
a,
able to assign the money to the contractor.
it's a taxation issue, so.
Right, so it's not doubly taxed. Number 7, public hearing to consider changes to Town Code Chapter 312, enacting temporary vehicle movement restrictions at the intersection of County Road 39 and Tuckahoe Road. That's what we had the earlier work session about. That's the 2-week pilot program. And number 8 is public hearing to amend Town Code Chapter 33010, Table of Use Regulations listing pre-existing marinas and boatyards as a permitted use in residential districts, and to designate the expansion and renovation of pre-existing marinas and boatyards in residential districts as a special exception use. John, I know that's something you've been working on.
Yes, I have.
Okay, so then...
Well, I've watched Michael Lieberman and Janice Shearer and Kyle Collins work on it.
Well, I know you've been also trying to help with that, too, so... Then Town Board resolutions. Tommy John, you're the first. You want to read?
29560, it's the authorized purchase of asbestos abatement from Branch Services Incorporated.
29597 authorizes the supervisor to sign contract extension with Bilo Industries, Inc., Grade A Petroleum, and Miles Petroleum Company, Inc., for oils, lubricants, and grease.
ID number 29575 to authorize the supervisor to sign the satisfaction of mortgage on community development block grant home improvement loan.
I just want to remind the board, the reason why we do this isn't just to show that we're able to read the title. So if you have questions, this is the time before it goes on our final agenda that we can, answer those questions. If we need to amend a bill or change a bill, there's still time to do that. So 29605, authorizing the acceptance of check from Southampton Animal Shelter Foundation representing the required performance bond.
29540, to authorize the renewal of Proofpoint through NYSOGS contract with Software House International. 29606, to authorize the supervisor to sign a contract extension with Roadwork Construction Corporation for the maintenance, installation, and repair of water mains and hydrants within the Hampton Bays Water District. 29551, to authorize the supervisor to execute a contract extension with Contemporary Computer Services to manage network services.
ID 29603 to authorize the supervisor to execute a contract with wire-to-water electrical contractors.
ID 29007 authorizes the supervisor to execute a license agreement for Hampton Classic Horse Show from August 26, 2018 through September 2nd, 2018 from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at 240 Snake Hollow Road in Bridgehampton.
ID number 29549, to authorize the supervisor to execute agreements with Bentley Systems Incorporated for their Procureware cloud-hosted software solution to manage the town's operations for bidding and contracts.
All right, 29602 authorizes the supervisor to execute any and all documents with the Bank of the Ozarks for letter of credit, collateral agreements, and to be added to the town's list of banks of deposit. They have given us a extremely favorable interest rate for liquid money of over 2%, which is the first we have seen. So.
Town Board Resolution ID 29489 to authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with Fox Land Surveying for subdivision maps at Jagger Woods.
29609, authorize the supervisor to sign a license agreement with Roman Sanford for force protection course for the town's police department.
ID 29601, to authorize the supervisor to sign agreement with TSY Merchant Solutions, LLC, for processing of credit card payments. ID number 29550, to authorize the supervisor to sign agreements with Box Incorporated for Business Plus Accounting. licenses.
29607, authorize the town to participate in the Environmental Facilities Corporation's Clean Vessel Assistance Program operation and maintenance project to support the trustees' pump out boat program for 2018. 29612, awards and authorize supervisor to sign contract with Arias Design LAPC for a conceptual park design plan for the Riverside Maritime Trail Park.
29611, awards and authorizes supervisor to sign a contract with Arias Design LAPC for landscape design and architecture engineering services for a community park in Hampton Bays.
Which one is that?
The maritime park by
Sure.
the canal, by the park.
The one along the,
Well, they got that one too.
Can I go to that?
Well, no, because they were doing work for the Recklers as well on the Maritime Park. So I'm going to have to sort that one out. Or
I mean, the fact that they're doing Riverside and this one?
it says the town board, no, because they were hired by the Recklers.
I think that was part of the approval process, was that they used them. Did we? It came out of our, yeah, Len might want to look at it.
RFPs for both of these.
Right.
And they were vetted.
Right.
And
No, I know, but I understand the point that Jay's making, because it
There is
was
a-
their project, so I get.
There is a
what you're
reference to
saying,
the
but-
Ethics Board, whereas pursuant to the Southampton Town Ethics Code, the town board seeks to authorize an exemption for Arias Designs from the Town Ethics Code,
it's part of
allowing
that, so
Arias
we-
Design to appear on behalf of other clients before the town board.
No, it doesn't address that.
I just want to make sure we don't have a conflict there,
Conflict of
so.
interest. And especially we're entertaining new ethics law.
Look, I think
as well.
they're very good, but, they, under the PDD, the Recklers are contributing $300,000 toward park improvements. I happen to like them. I think they're deeply committed to the community, but because they will have their hotel and banquet hall and the townhouses across the way, they obviously have a concern about how that park is developed. I want to make sure, though, that park is developed the way we want it developed, not the way they want it developed. So having the designer, working for both entities could
Did he appear, but
be
he
a
came
conflict.
before us, though, like twice already, and we looked at his plans, so.
Yes, we've been working on this,
I would assume the
yeah.
ethics board already opined on this, or
Yeah.
they would have, I
Yeah,
don't know.
I'll look into it a little
Look
bit
into it,
more.
Because they've come before us twice
We've
already.
sort of already, because we put it out on the website, the community weighed
Right,
in, we
yeah,
developed
we
the
did this
plan,
already.
it's
Aspects of the plan.
aspects of the plan, yeah. So, okay, I'm
All
sorry
right,
about that, so go ahead.
29604 recalls and amends resolution 2018-470 to correct.
I put Frank in if you
Oh.
have any questions about.
Frank, maybe real quick, so I knew that Arias was the winning, or the recommended for the Maritime Trail in Riverside.
Correct.
I didn't know, though, that they were also going to get the Maritime Park in Hampton Bays along the canal.
Subsequent to our conversation, the committee that reviewed that recommended them for the.
So I had, because they're working for the Recklers who have the property on both sides of the park, one across the water, I wanted to make sure there were no conflicts of interest.
Well, I think, I'm not sure if it was Christine Fenton or Kristen Doulos who spoke with the town attorney's office to address that question, and they didn't feel that there was a conflict of interest, as long as our contract with them was clear about their responsibilities to us. Now, we can clarify that further, but I think that issue aside, since I sat on the committee, their presentation and the scope of their work was clearly superior to the other candidates in this particular project.
No, and I appreciate that. What I'm not understanding is why we're now, the town board, we're seeking to exempt them if there's no.
Exempt them from.
Right here in the town board seeks to authorize exemption for Arias Design. So if there's no perceived conflict of interest,
I think that was just for information purposes only. It's in the whereas clauses, it's not in the resolve, so I think it's just citing.
But it still is.
Reviewed by the ethics board.
it was reviewed and, okay, all right,
That part of it's above my paper.
okay, it's fine.
All right?
Yep.
And in this particular resolution, you have a question mark in the town code.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Code. So is that because you're in the process of working on it?
I think that's a typo.
Yeah, it doesn't do that
It's
section.
not in rich text.
Yeah.
whoever did the resolution did not change the
Yeah, I,
to rich text.
Okay, so who will supply?
that
us
question
with
mark
the
does not
proper
belong there. It probably was a section.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a section, like that little
might
SS
dismissed.
thing.
They-
I'm gonna leave these here
The
because I'm
wrong
coming back.
keystroke, okay.
So do you want something
Is that for
further
Long
on this
Beach?
before we?
No,
Yes.
I think you understand my
I
concern.
do. So do you want something in addition to what we just did, or?
No, I will, I could maybe speak with Mr. Rumpf. If this is who they recommended, and it's been vetted by the town attorney's office,
Then I'm fine.
29611.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. I know that they will do an excellent job. It is that dual agency that concerns me a little bit. You can't, you have
understood.
potential differences. Like, I had seen an original park plan that they had done that had a diagonal treed walkway through the center of that lawn. And I'm like, well, it renders the park unusable. You can't, I want people to be able to use the park. I could understand why maybe the hotel next door wants less people there, but it's really important to me to know that the park is being designed for the public at large, and that there's no potential conflict going into the design. So, I'm not trying to disparage in any way Mr. Rumpf, because I think he's very good. And I think if he is working for us, he will work for us. So I'm just putting it out there.
It would seem cleaner.
It would seem cleaner, but if it has been
What would-
fully vetted and waived, and does anybody
What
else
would
have?
make, you're saying it would seem cleaner, what can we do that would make it seem cleaner?
To not have the same company working on the park as the development next door.
Unless he's no
But
longer
if
working
it's
for
See, I-
vetted and,
Yeah.
we vote on it, it's all done in public.
I don't see a conflict of interest, that's the problem, I'm trying to understand why there would be one, but,
I do see what you're saying. I just don't, if the ethics, if town attorney's office signs off on it, the ethics board signs off on it.
Then I'm
and
good.
we're
Yeah.
watching, but I get your
think
point.
We're kind
I
of at a
understand your
point in this where we've already conceptually designed this park, and the public
the
has
first
weighed
phase,
in.
yeah.
We know where the parking area is going, we know where the pavilion's going. It's really just a question of what the lights are gonna look like and the park benches and things like that, where we have a lot of public input on that. So I think we're really down to engineering, like where the buried utilities are going. So I don't really know that there's much even to debate about this Maritime Park anymore. I think it's really just
You're
the
talking
engineering
yourself
of it.
out of your own
I am.
point.
No, I am a little bit, because the potential for conflicts are sort of behind us.
Okay.
And anything else that is going to come in front of us anyway.
Right.
So we have a chance to talk about it anyway.
Right.
But it's good to be mindful that you brought it to our attention.
Right.
I get it. Okay.
Okay.
So, but we're good. So we can leave that? Okay. Did I do 29604?
No, just do it again.
Resolution
you
ID
didn't.
number 29604. Recalls and amends Resolution 2018470 to correct a financial impact.
ID 29563, request to Suffolk County Legislature for extension of 72H properties. It's, with a couple of properties that they just need more time. We've made the transfer, but it just needs more time to build those so that we can get them to people that deserve them.
So these are properties that were given to the town under the 72H program with likely a 7-year reverter, that if we did not build affordable housing on them, they go back to the county. There's typically that, and Jim, you're probably familiar with that reverter language, so we then have to do a resolution like this to
ask
keep
for the
them
extension.
from reverting these which they're probably actively,
Yes.
I imagine these are under the housing authority.
Well, one of them's like a Habitat for Humanity.
I see that, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and the other four
The
are
others
all
are
housing
housing
authority. And it does take a while sometimes to make these things happen, so, okay.
Sure. The county usually, as long as you're proceeding, you're doing the right thing, they're supportive of this.
So it's 29,544, amends the 18 adopted budget for the Controller's Office. 29,595 amends the 18 adopted budget for acquisitions of area of the former Lobster Inn properties. 29,598 amends the 18 adopted budget for Hampton Bays Water District. Can I just go back 1 second to the Lobster Inn? Oh, that has to do with the access. So, the one, I guess we could, I'm thinking about the order. So we're going to have to debate whether we're going to use some non-CPF funds to acquire along the roadway some land that could be flexible if we ever need to do an access. Or
From the other side.
from that community through, and which I think we should. This would basically set up a make $210,000 available for a 50-foot wide buffer along County Road 39 for non-CPF uses in the area of the marina. I think that it's important that we do that. I just was questioning the timing of it because this resolution is coming before the authorizing resolution to acquire. So
You can always hold it.
we could kind of pass by it and do them all together. Because there's no need to buy that if we're not buying everything else, so.
Yeah, but we had the work session on that. I think everything under CPF we've already looked at.
Right.
Right?
Right. You
So,
know, the
and this
need-
is an amendment to the 2018.
I have to say, when this was originally talked about, trying to acquire some sort of easement along there, we didn't have the turnaround.
Right, from Inlet Road, they were trying to address that.
Right,
Inlet
so
Road.
now they can make the right, and they can sort of, they can turn around on County Road, on State Route 27. They
Right,
didn't
the
have that
U-turn,
before.
Right.
What this potentially would do is get them to that whole different road system that goes to Hampton Bays North Road. Would get them over toward North Road and the overpass, what is that?
But is this where we require the trustee road to get to that portion? Is this that bottom portion that
It
runs
would
parallel with the
connect to
service
the
road?
trustee road.
Because there was an issue with that, with, between highways and the trustees, and I'm,
It would have to be probably brought up to highway standards.
yeah.
It goes
just
to
creates-
jurisdiction of the trustees in the town.
It was, yeah, there was
It
some.
this basically, well, we can talk about it at the hearing, but it just basically preserves the ability in the future to do something there. We did something similar to this on another CPF acquisition of it was like a strawberry field property, and the county was concerned about the CPF running right up to the highway and wanted us to create a strip. Anybody else remember that? And we did that. We took non-CPF funds to acquire the section along County Road 39.
Oh, for the, yeah, I do remember.
The strawberry
Right,
field.
right,
It's
right.
appropriate fund balance, it doesn't actually purchase the property.
Yeah.
Right, it earmarks it.
It just
Right.
earmarks it.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah,
before.
but it is kind of part and parcel to that other thing, so I want to make sure we're doing it kind of all together. 29,598 amends the 18 adopted budget for Hampton Bays Water District. 29,543 authorizes expenditure from Good Ground Park restricted account.
29,495, resolution to establish a restricted account for the Eloise Obrecht donation to senior services.
29,530 authorizes the town attorney to reimburse NYMER for the deductibles for claims settled.
All right, I'm sorry, could we go, just go back
To Julie's?
to Julie's? So this is
Well, we're here.
a bequest to our senior, that's really nice, of $23,456. That's,
She attended our senior services a lot and thought of us.
oh, that's really,
It was a great
This was
memorial.
part of her will that she
Yeah, she
donated
did.
$23,456.07. Yeah.
Not insignificant.
It's
Thank you.
not, it's
that's-
really
so thanks to
amazing.
her and her family, and that's
That's
really
really
wonderful.
special. So are we going to do something to honor her?
I think it's what she wants it to be used for, too, so
Yeah,
For programs, right?
Yes.
Enhanced programs.
attract more seniors.
well, that's,
That's whatever was left in her estate account, wow, for this purpose. That's beautiful, so,
well, I think we should,
yeah, honor her memory
Honor her
somehow.
memory, I think
Yeah, we'll have
that's-
to think about, maybe we could do a plaque or something. 29,530, I said that, authorized town attorney to reimburse NYMER for the deductibles for claims settled. 29,539, resolution of adoption amending town code, chapter 23, code of ethics to require disclosure forms in connection with town applications. That's a notice of,
30.
that's for a notice, no, that's adoption. That's
Well,
adoption.
It's
The public
subject
hearing
to,
on.
public hearing is going to be Tuesday on this matter.
Right.
Resolution 29538 is a resolution of adoption amending Town Code Chapter 162 filming to exempt from filming permit requirement shoots involving 25 or fewer individuals, and we're having a hearing on that as well.
Now, is that
That was
just
to
for
help-
photography shoots, or is
Yeah,
that
it was
all?
for help for print ads because they felt that they were getting swept up in the whole filming production, but the print cataloging type business was really a much different animal, and they were getting hurt by this unintentionally as a result of us trying to address a larger problem.
All right, so
So we're trying to
but there's
fix
some exact, so it's basically you have to have a cast of no more than 12, right? And it has
It's
to be no
crew,
more
it's
than 3
everything
days.
together.
Right.
So now this would make it 25 so that they could have their shoots.
Right. What's the entire cast of crew engaged in filming? All right. No more than 3 days, and does not obstruct a public roadway. All right, so there are some exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
So this would, be and it's, those filming or okay, it could be film or photography, but if it's, so this is not a major motion picture here.
No, and that.
We're
and we
talking
were
about a
trying to address,
limited
like-
duration
right,
time.
exactly.
And a relatively small crew that's not blocking any road access.
It was an unintended, they were an unintended consequence of other
I like-
first legislation.
I like it. 29,584.
Which part?
Yeah, well, you know.
The unintended consequence or the?
Yeah, well, because they got swept up in.
Yeah.
In general, they're not problematic. Sometimes you have a 5-person crew doing a commercial or a shoot, even for a local store advertising. It could be for Golden Pear. You know, you don't want them necessarily to be prohibited from something that really would not hurt anybody or negatively impact anyone. So I think that's good. 29,584, resolution of adoption amending Town Code, Chapter 312, enacting temporary vehicle movement restrictions at the intersection of County Road 39, Tuckahoe Road. That's that pilot program. Go ahead, Christine.
ID 29334 is an authorization of cost reimbursement waiver for the North Sea Fire Department Annual Carnival from June 29th through July 3rd, 2018, from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. ID 29333 is an authorization of cost reimbursement waiver for the Greek Orthodox Church Greek Orthodox Festival from July 12th through July 15th of 2018.
Can you go back one second to the cost waiver before it?
Yes.
It might be just a typo. The
Fire department?
financial impact at the end of the GL code, there's a $90.88. I don't think that belongs there. The waiver is total $6,238 waiver.
Oh, then the total cost is that right?
Oh, you mean at the end of the GL
I'll
code,
look
yeah.
at it with Len.
End of the
Find out
GL
with Len.
code, there's a $90.88, which doesn't
Yeah.
seem
Well, it does
to.
add up because the total anticipated cost has an 88 cents, so it does figure.
Yeah,
in
it
there
might figure,
somehow.
yeah. I'll talk to Len. They might
Yeah.
be missing maybe they should have moved it over or put a hyphen.
Yeah, I don't.
Sometimes the fire marshal costs are not significant in
Yeah.
comparison to the other costs that are charged. It may just be related to an inspection of the tent or something like that.
Probably is, probably attendance.
Because the 328.80.
Yeah, you're right, because it's actually
I think
missing.
it does
from-
include, it's just
just
misplaced
needs to be
somehow.
put
Yeah,
over.
the fire marshal is actually missing from that.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, you'll talk to Len. Okay, Christine, I'm
just-
sorry, did you read you did, right, the cost
yeah, I did.
reimbursement for the
I did.
Greek Orthodox Festival? So I'm up. 29,559 authorizes community preservation fund tax refund pursuant to first-time homebuyers exemption for Gaidris Matanis and Deva Matanin, I'm guessing. Tommy John?
Good job. I was reading the names. ID number 29542, authorized surplus auction sale for the Highway Department.
ID 29452, that's it, yeah. Cost reimbursement waiver for East Quogue Village Green Summer Concert Series to be held Tuesday nights from July 3rd to July 31st, 2018, with rain dates of August 7th and 14th, 2018. ID 29596 is a resolution memorializing the Southampton Town Board's commitment to the goals and objectives of the adopted Sustainability 400+ plan and to renewable electric energy resources.
Can you explain, I've never seen anything that looks like a Okay, a renewed commitment to an adopted plan
I think
kind
we're
of
trying to
thing.
get grant funding, and this will assist us in showing all of the efforts that we've undertaken. It kind of summarizes what we've been doing, what we are doing, and where we want to be.
Can I ask if it's a reaffirmation why you haven't included the goal of being 100% renewable by the year
Because I
2025?
didn't think that that was realistic at the time when we adopted it. That would be 5 years from now, or 7 years from now, I'm sorry. I didn't think that it was realistic, and I had said no then, so I didn't want to be contradictory and have that in here. So I just renewed all of the other stuff that we did have unanimous support on.
But I think that they were kind of, it was like a core principle that kind of drove a lot of these other things, that
It
this is.
came later, actually.
Some
We did
of it.
400-plus plan before you had gotten here, and we started all these other things before you had gotten here. You introduced
Well,
them.
the Hertz rating was after I was here, where we upped those. The LED street lighting was after I got here. I mean, there's a number of things that came after, but it just basically the town board, even if you didn't support it, did support it.
Well, do you want me to withdraw it, and then you can bring this, and it can be your resolution?
Well, I'd like to see it at least include that goal.
I can't include it, because I'm bringing this forward. I didn't support that then, because I don't think it's realistic. I do think these things are realistic, and I support these. If you want to do a separate one, or if you want to do a different one, you can do that, and we can go
I'll
to
have
the
to think
vote.
about it, but if we're reaffirming the things we did, I'd like it to
I can't
mention,
reaffirm
'cause
something I
that
didn't
was
do.
That was really
Well, the
important
board
to me, setting
reaffirmed
that
it.
goal.
We're being asked to vote on it.
Yeah.
Don't vote on it,
If
or
it's a
vote on it
goal.
and vote no.
Well, I do agree with these things, Christine, of course, but the 100% renewable language in here is important.
But I don't agree with that, because I don't think it's.
Well, then withdraw it, and then I'm certainly
Well, it's on
happy
the
to sponsor it
agenda.
and add that in, so,
It's on the agenda already.
and I would
so-
welcome the entire board to co-sponsor it.
Well, I'm not going to withdraw it. It's on the agenda, so you can vote no, or you can vote another resolution.
Well, we can introduce a competing resolution that includes the goal
Definitely.
that we set as a
Absolutely.
town board.
I didn't support it, so that's fine.
I know, and
Do that.
I still think it's possible. Maybe we have to look at 2025. I think goals are goals. Sometimes, you don't get there exactly when you hope, but we're moving toward it. When we have the offshore wind power, which I think we eventually will have, we'll hit that goal. But it's just probably unlikely. I'm not saying it's impossible 2025, but it might be a year later or something like that. It's not clear. But I think we are moving toward it with a lot of the things that we are doing. I would like to have that included. I feel like it's a glaring omission when I read it, that where is our goal? Where is the town adopted goal?
It's in the Sustainability Plan 400 that was unanimously adopted. Like I said, you can add another resolution, you can do whatever you would
All
like.
right.
I can't reaffirm something I didn't affirm. That would be disingenuous.
Okay, so let's just keep going then. So, Tommy John, you're next.
ID number 29565, 2018 junkyard permits. Town Board Resolution ID number 29566, 2018 manufactured home community license.
29368 is a 2018 part-time salary schedule.
That's a long one.
Yep, 23765 appoints Lauren League, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, to Public Safety Dispatcher 1 position in the Police Department. 28857 appoints Barbara Lombardi to Justice Court Clerk position in Justice Court. 29545 accepts resignation of a building inspector. 29507 appoints Evan Robinson to custodial worker 1 position in municipal works.
That's a newly created position? Because it says the fiscal impact, it's billing.
No, financial impact is no.
It says it's taking
For
a
new
vacancy money, but I don't know if that's
Existing
really-
vacancy.
Yeah, so
It's
the funding's
budgeted.
available through,
I think this is a budgeted position, we can ask Glenn,
yes, please,
but there's no
find out.
reference to the position being eliminated and filled with this through a different title, so. 29355 appoints Travis Lignelli to Records Management Assistant position in Town Clerk's Office. 29505 appoints Juliana Quant to environmental analyst position in community preservation. 29,573 appoints Laura Pettit to senior citizens program supervisor position in civil service. Above civil service list.
ID number 29583, notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 312, Vehicle and Traffic, to exclude trucks over 10,000 pounds from using River Avenue in Eastport. River Avenue has a overpass owned by the Long Island Railroad, and we don't have a weight limit on that.
Oh,
that's interesting.
Is that something that they had asked for at the Long Island Railroad?
This came from the highway superintendent, and apparently there are allegedly trucks that take boats over the overpass, and because there are marinas down on the south side of River, and we would like them to go down a little bit farther and go into the neighborhood and get to the marinas, rather than
So
going over the
boats and
train tracks.
vehicles exceeding 10,000?
10,000 pounds.
That's the issue?
Yes.
I think we certainly would need to know the weight limit for the
The bridge
structural,
road
the bridge
itself.
itself. I know whenever we do something like this, we'll have a public hearing on it, but if we know that a lot of people who carry boats down to the water are using this bridge, now they're gonna have to go through a neighborhood to get to the bridge, and I certainly want to know the impacts. If there's a structural reason or danger because the bridge isn't rated for that kind of weight, then that makes a lot of sense. If it's something else, though, it could create impacts for neighborhoods. I need to know that, too, so.
Have there been any damage to the roadway or something? Is that
Not that I know of. This
Okay.
was a request, like I said, from our highway superintendent.
Yeah, I kind of agree with the supervisor. I'd like to
Okay,
know
we'll
more about
just
it.
need more
vet that out a little bit longer.
Okay, so.
They would have to go down one block and then go in.
Yeah, I know the area, that's why I'm saying I've never heard of it being a problem before. So I live right near there.
Okay.
29,582, notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 312-12, Vehicles and Traffic, to authorize removal of stop signs on Scuttle Hole Road at the intersection of Millstone Road. That is the stop sign just past that roundabout as you go past the Mitchell's Lane intersection. There's a roundabout, Scuttle Hole Road, and then when you get to Millstone Road, there's a stop sign there. This would remove that stop sign, and we'll go through that at the public hearing, how that will work, but I think
The traffic backs up into the circle.
it does, it makes the circle non-functional. So the intent with the circle was to keep traffic moving.
Yeah, it seems to be, does seem to be an impediment, actually, at times.
Yeah, and the county told me years ago that they were very surprised that typically you do not have a stop sign immediately following a roundabout. That is it creates a dangerous type of situation, so. 29,581, notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 312-72 to prohibit left turns from Millstone Road onto Scuttle Hole Road. That is related to that, removing the stop sign. And 29,546, notice of public hearing on the acquisition of lands of JAB 1 Ferry Road, JAB 3 Ferry Road, JAB 5 Ferry Road, Sag Harbor, to amend the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property. I'm sure, Tommy John, you want to co-sponsor that.
I would
This is the
be
Steinbeck
honored.
Park. Sunday, could we add Councilman Scavone on that? That's the Steinbeck Park piece, so it's coming up for public hearing. It's a $10.5 million acquisition, I believe, 10.5. Is that in here somewhere?
No, I didn't.
Price?
546.
No, that's just for the,
All right, 29,426, notice of public hearing to consider the acquisition of lands of Larson Estate, Hampton Bays, and amend the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property. $29,287, authorizes acquisition of lands of Robusto, Riverside, and amends the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property. 29-430 amends the Town of Southampton Community Preservation Project Plan and CPF Management and Stewardship Plan to include Peconic Bay Marina properties, Shinnecock Hills authorized acquisition, that is the Lobster Inn property. 29-431 amends the Town of Southampton Community Preservation Project Plan and CPF Management and Stewardship Plan to include the Mana Ocean Foundation, Inc. properties, Shinnecock Hills authorized acquisition of development rights, that's the fish farm portion. And we'll go, it's a couple more add-ons. 29429 accepts retirement of Alan Burkowski, minibus driver and senior services. 29503 accepts retirement of Barbara Ann Mayer, senior clerk typist in Southampton Town Police. 29504 accepts retirement of Deborah Miller, senior citizen nutrition center manager in senior services. And that's all I got. Anybody else have anything? Janice, did I get everything? Any questions? All right, so Sunday, you can go ahead and take that.
I can, except for I do have the new blue backs for your signature that need to be signed as soon as possible so we can get them out the door.
Okay. Those are on the Assembly and Senate bills?
It has to be in black ink, or? I have that.
There you go.
This train schedule.
By winged foot. There we go.
Carrier pigeon.
Well, it's a Senate bill. Need an eagle.
State Senate.
This is the Senate version.
If I could just do that,
Right.
I'd be so.
This is
I
the
could
doc.
just keep my car parked
Well, this
there. I
is
could just
what we're looking at in the future. I love that you can leave Penn Station at 6:42 and get to the golf course at 9 o'clock
I know. Amazing.
by train.
By train.
And this is the trustees, and this Assembly bill. And this is the trustees, the Senate bill. A lot of John Hancocks here. One more. Okay. There you go, here's your pen back. Thank you, Cindy. Okay. So, what's next? We have project updates. I could skip for a week.
Well,
if you guys-
I'd actually like to make an announcement. I know Mr. Sapone is here, but we had a very successful, yeah, come on up. You want to talk about it and show that?
Deborah gave me that.
So, we had a very successful electric hybrid expo in Hampton Bays. And it was like over 400 people, I think, Frank, in Hampton Bays. Yeah, it was a really good event. So we're having another event like that in Long Beach on the 23rd. And I'll put this up for people to see. And we'll be supported by the Village of Sag Harbor and the Village of North Haven. And we'll be highlighting home energy efficiency and variable speed pool pumps, solarized EV hybrid vehicles, bike share program with Zagster, and deep water wind and innovative alternative sanitary systems and so forth. And the rebate process, we'll be able to talk about that at this event. So it's sort of a transplant of the expo to Long Beach, but expanded to include a bunch of other stuff. So, and that's at 4 to 6 in the Village of, actually, I don't have a location on here.
Long Beach.
Just at Long Beach. It's just at Long Beach. So on the 23rd between 4 and 6. So I invite everyone to come and participate. It was a great event in Hampton Bays, and I think this one's going to even be better.
Frank, there were ribbon cutting for the playground. Is that coming up in Good Ground Park?
I brought some more paper for you to manipulate there.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about Good Ground Park?
Give you each one of these if you haven't received them via email. The Parks Department and the Chamber of Commerce has coordinated a business event for June 14th, which also happens to be Flag Day. And they've sent out that invitation through the Chamber of Commerce. We are also have invited Douglas Elman to come to the park to do a ribbon cutting for opening this second portion of the playground, which is quite spectacular, I have to admit. There's obviously, the board approved their donation to the park, and we are recognizing that with some signage indicating their contribution. We're going to unveil that signage, and then part of it is, a second part of it is the chamber has invited local businesses to invite the businesses to understand how the chamber can help them promote their businesses and use events at the park as part of that promotion. So the chamber is going to speak to whatever businesses come to that event. Because it is Flag Day, we have asked the color guard from the Hampton Bays American Legion post to do a flag ceremony at the beginning. So it'll start at 5 with a brief flag ceremony, and then we'll go to the playground area, do a ribbon cutting. There'll be a short presentation to the businesses, and the Parks Department and largely the Chamber is going to be providing refreshments for people who come to that. Everybody is welcome, but is particularly geared towards helping the businesses understand how the Chamber can help them promote their business, not only through the park, but in other ways. The Chamber has taken a very active role in promoting businesses this year. In fact, they are working with the press to do a special color insert in the June 15th edition of the Southampton Press, featuring businesses and activities in Hampton Bays. So that's going to be part of what they're going to be sharing with the businesses. And that little invitation was designed by our staff and went out on behalf of the Chamber.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Should be a pretty good
Yeah, sounds like fun.
Remind us again, because we'll have a work session earlier that day. In case anybody wants to.
Thanks.
May I take this time, Jay?
I'm sorry?
Are we done here?
Oh, Frank,
There
you,
are a couple other things I just wanted to share with the board, and
the playground, I wanted to know about the new playground at Good Ground Park. I have a note here that there's a ribbon cutting on the new playground. Has that been, that's going to be that day?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Those short naps come in handy.
I was plugging it in.
I think you probably have received, but maybe not have had a chance to see. This is for you to look at, Jay. There are other copies, but it's easier. We sent out an email yesterday to all staff about a current project to upgrade the town's website. And what you have in front of you is a before and after kind of picture. The picture to the right is what you currently see as of this moment. And Deborah Keller and Colleen Jones have been working with our consultant for the past several months to redesign the website. And what you see is a visual representation of that, but it's been quite a difficult and challenging task because the technology has changed significantly. The real outcome here, other than it being, I think, more updated and current in terms of its design, is its functionality. The number of people who rely on websites through handheld devices, cell phones, laptops, Kindles, so forth and so on, all of these websites have to be designed to respond to those different formats. So we've upgraded our format to include that. Also, there is a new component to the ADA, that websites have to have some conditions under which they need to be ADA compliant, and ours was not. So we've addressed, because the issues didn't, the requirements didn't exist when we designed it the first time. So the staff downstairs, in conjunction with our consultant, went through and addressed all the ADA compliant issues that are had to be corrected on our website. The content information does not change. If there are agendas for board meetings or studies through the land management department or information through HR, all of that is still there. It's just hopefully more readily accessible, more easily accessible,
and a little bit more attractive to look at. So the staff, and that's going to be launched by the end of the business day today, so from this afternoon forward, you'll see the new format. That was the other thing I wanted to mention to you. And then just as a reminder, we're going to have our upcoming event, first event for the summer season at Good Ground Park on June 28th. And if board members don't have copies of the schedule, we're happy to provide that. The town does have an ad on behalf of the town in the U.S. Open color insert for the Southampton Press, and that is the town board welcoming the U.S. Open to town, and of course featuring the events at parks.
And by the way,
just thought I would mention it, since I've rarely get a chance to talk about it.
good. Anything else, Frank? Did we get that grant request in?
The grant request is
DRI?
in. Eileen Quinn is working right now on the final documents for the second allocation that Assemblyman Thiel was able to get for us. We've already completed the documentation and received the $500,000 that Senator Laval. That money has been sent to us to compensate us for costs associated with Good Ground Park. The Assemblyman was able to get us a second allocation. There is always a great deal of documentation associated with those allocations. We are sending in the final pages of the paperwork today, and we should receive that second allocation probably within the next couple of weeks, and we're beginning to work on a CFA grant both for the Maritime Pedestrian Park in Riverside, and we're going to try once again to get some additional funding for Good Ground Park for some other amenities that we want to see there. But
Are we on schedule with Good Ground Park to create a comfort station?
yes, we are.
That's in the fall?
The board approved the supplemental allocation based on the grant from Suffolk County Downtown Revitalization. We did not succeed in our CFA grant.
Right.
The Suffolk County Health Department application has been in for many weeks now.
So that's what's holding it up, right?
As soon as we get, of course, we wouldn't do
We
that.
put the money in place for it.
It's already there. The money's been secured. We have reasonably accurate cost estimates. We have more than enough funds to do that. We're going to have to add some fund. Some of those funds will go to the portion of the playground. The $50,000 from Douglas Elman was a substantial contribution, but it didn't cover the full cost of the playground. But we should, if approvals go through, and those approvals are always a winding road to get to approval status, in the fall when the park activities begin to wind down, we should be able to start construction, one would hope.
Good.
Okay.
Any other questions for Frank? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
All right, so any other updates from any other board members?
Yeah, I have a quick update for the underground utility improvement district, or the possibility of thereof, between Noyak and Bay Point and the Village of North Haven. We had a meeting in the Village of North Haven. It was well attended, and the reaction was positive. What this would be is the possibility of burying the utility lines on the Long Beach stretch. The amount that would cost would be $1,744,000. Some citizens in Bay Point along Cliff Drive would be paying extra. They're going to collect $200,000 themselves, and then we're looking to get another $125,000 from the state. And the assessment in this district, which would roughly be the Sag Harbor School District if it were approved, would be about $25 per $1,200,000 of assessment. So we're going to be...
The average increase to somebody's taxes would be about $25 a year.
Right.
For the period of the bond.
For 20 years.
20 years, okay.
So we're meeting with the Noyak Civic Council on June 12th, and I just wanted to bring that up in public session here so we know what's kind of happening.
Yeah.
Or if anybody had any questions.
I would love to see a visual of well, like before and after, if somebody could take a photograph and then go into Photoshop or something and show what it would look like if all those lines were buried. I think it's a significant visual improvement.
First 2 pages.
Oh,
But,
it's
right,
been
we
done?
should put them up.
It's on here already?
It's been done?
Because I was gonna offer
On one
Photoshop
stretch.
services.
On the stretch between Bay Point and North Haven, those photos. The osprey nest would remain. And if anybody is interested in what the poles are going to look like, if you drive up Route 114 between the circle and the ferry, you can see that the poles have been replaced, and they're going to be about 8 to 12 feet higher, and they have extensions off of them. Those are the poles that are scheduled to be going across Long Beach currently. And those are the lines that we would like to see under the ground. And we want to know what people think. So if you are interested, you live in Noyak or wherever, you can come to the civic meeting or contact myself or Mayor Sander of the Village of North Haven.
Cool.
So there's another picture here before. Any questions for Tommy John about the underground utility district? Yeah, there's a number of photo simulations in there. Anybody else with any updates?
Yeah, I had a ribbon cutting yesterday for the Mead Cox Bay Park, which I'm really happy that finally came to fruition. The residents were very happy that they've been working on this for a long time. So they have that access, and it's really it's cute. You should go
Yeah,
down
I'm
there.
sorry to
There's
have
a lot of
missed it.
history.
Yeah.
And just want to mention again that this Sunday, June 10th, Hampton Bays, Lindsay Dunn and several other Hampton Bays high school students are having a concert at Good Ground Park from 6 to 10. The rain date is the 16th, but I think the weather actually might hold off. So everybody that can come down, please do, and support them because they're really good. That's it.
Julie, anything to add?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up for our opioid Task Force Prevention Committee. We're in the final stages of finalizing our presentation for June 21st to the town board. We have some great ideas, and I'm looking forward to hear from the other committees as well.
Connie, do you have any updates on the opioid task force? We're getting ready there, right? That's pretty much it?
That's pretty much it. The presentation's going to be the 21st at 11 a.m.
Okay. All right, so then all we have left is executive session. Acquisitions, confidential, legal advice, and I don't see personnel.
I have personnel.
Yeah, there
here.
was personnel issue.
Oh, yeah, I do see over here on this page. So acquisitions, confidential, legal advice, and personnel issues. So I'll make a motion to adjourn our work session except for going into executive session on the items I mentioned.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.